could have a
That's an
career as a
interesting question.
rapist.
What?
74, 65, 61, 6D.
That's number one.
Oh, imagine that being a Monty Python joke. Do you have your own cross, or would you like one provided?
We've been privatised.
Well, I don't know. Like, Jamie could be a foot fetishist for all I know. And, like, I'm not going to judge him for it much, but at the same time...
Well, yeah, but I guess, yeah. Me be you heathen bollocks. I feel like I always end up being the villain in my own streams.
Like you wouldn't bribe someone to get out of prison, or
No, I wouldn't bribe someone to get out of prison. No, I just make the most of it. I get prison ripped. I join a gang. One of the nice ones, of course, not one of the Aryan ones.
I'm glad you said prison ripped.
What did you think I was going to say? Oh, oh no, no, that's not an activity you choose to do.
No, it's not.
No, that's not.
No,
something I would
it's
choose
not.
to do.
Hi,
No.
everyone.
I would go pump some iron. I would learn about prison wine. I would spend some time in the library learning to be a lawyer. All wonderful things. It'd be great. Hello, Steltech.
Hello.
No, you choose to get prison ripped. You don't choose to get what Jonas thought I said.
Worried you were going to say. You didn't.
Yeah.
Hey, Jamie.
Hey.
What do you think about my
I did think something was different about you. I thought part of me thought that I just hadn't seen you wearing glasses for a while, but that doesn't make any sense.
Yes, I point it out because these, combined with the headphones, the frames on these are still a bit tight. I'm trying to sort of wear them into comfortability, but it's okay because I got 2 new frames of glasses. These ones are weeb glasses because they have literally Japanese on them.
Literally Japanese. What does it say?
So the brand is Super Dry, so I'm pretty sure it just also says Super Dry, but I don't know. It could say, it could say, "I am dumb foreigner."
I am a small pee-pee man.
I am small pee-pee
I
man.
spend money poorly on to try make small pee-pee look big. You're good?
Yeah, I thought
Hello,
I'd just let you go on the pee-pee rant for a bit.
Can you hear us at home? Are we audible? Because if we are, what?
Don't forget to record
your
audio. And I'm remembering that I bought a license for Reaper, so I need to go find that license code that I literally paid.
Record a podcast. That's what we're here to do.
Oh,
well, I'm starting recording now. Thank you very much, Steltech. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know. How's everyone doing? I've been doing okay. Went to visit Manchester this weekend. That was lovely. I'd never been before. It was lovely. Lovely. And I've also been playing loads of Overwatch, which we'll talk about later on today. I think, I've turned on my torch somehow. There we go. Jonas has played a little bit of Overwatch with me, but I think he's had enough. What does that say? Annyeong Haseo. Annyeong Haseo to you too, Sylvan.
Oh, he did
Attention,
say he was
freaks.
Korean,
It's me, Pesky Bee. I fucking love the duck. The duck is my favourite character.
I'm a fan of the one that's like a red mop.
Red guy. There's red guy, yellow guy, and duck. Why are they pretending they don't respect me?
Several years ago, I planned a Halloween costume where I was going to buy... I had short hair at the time, and I bought a literal mop and put it in red dye, like red food dye or red hair dye or something, and tried to stain it red so I could wear it on my head. and then I think put some like googly eyes or something just over where my eyes would be. And I wore a suit so that I would be the business red guy from when he's working in an office.
Yeah. Yeah.
The mop didn't dye very well, so it was just a really light pink, shittily. So it just looked awful, and I felt bad, so I just went around in a
Aw.
suit.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
Well, maybe if you manage to get it to work, then I'll go as Duck. I'll paint myself green.
And then who will we get to go as Yellow Boy?
Yellow guy. That can be
Yellow guy.
Fairy. Fairy can be yellow guy.
Okay.
Yeah, because he looks most like him in real life. He wears a lot of dungarees.
Yeah. I guess I kind of want to remember what they look like. Don't.
I want a new phone, Koto. My phone is slowly dying, and it's got a big crack in the corner.
My phone is
Horrible.
brand new. I got the Pixely Goo 6.
Ooh, Googaroo.
Goo.
Googaroo.
Are you James recording?
I'm the computer. I'm a
I'm
computer
the
guy.
guy.
Yes, I
Are
am
you
recording.
All right, I'm starting recording now. Oh, it monitors me, and that makes it really hard for me to think. There we go, done.
Yeah, digital monitor. It's that thing that makes you like you have the slight delay. Yeah.
It temporarily like applies micro paralysis on my own speech. Like it's such a weird debuff, but it's really strong.
Yeah, it's super common with stuff like that. Like there was a thing on QI where they had everyone wear like headsets and do that. No one can do it. Thank you, Koto. I have no money. I will not be buying a phone anytime soon.
Buy a phone.
Maybe when this cost of living crisis eases up. Am I right?
But don't worry, the government's paying you to pay for your energy bills, right?
That's the phrase I was looking for, Steltech. Speech jamming.
Speech jamming, all like that. Yeah, government's paying us to pay our energy bills.
Paying us to pay our energy bills.
Are you not getting this?
They're paying our energy bills.
So I just got a £66 voucher that if I go take it to the post office.
Yeah, it depends on how you pay your energy bill.
Right. Okay.
So most people will just get money off their bills.
Right. Yeah, I have to go take a voucher to the post office with the key that tops up my electric meter.
Right, that'll be it because you're on a key. Yes.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. I haven't been on a key since university, and I fucking hated being on electricity key. Apart from anything, it is I think it's the most expensive way to pay your electricity bill.
I don't know. Mary and I feel like we don't actually pay that much.
I mean,
I don't know if that's because we have low usage or.
It's not like a vague suggestion. It is true. Like it is more expensive to do it that way.
Oh.
Yeah. In fact, actually, a lot of houses have meters because someone previously didn't pay their bill, and so they put a meter in.
Yeah. No, we live in a block of flats, and they all have their own individual meters outside their front door. But yeah, like I said, Mary and I just find that actually, like, we keep hearing about people who have paid like £200 for our electricity this month. Crazy. And we just like, oh, our meter just used up like 80.
Yeah, our monthly bill went down this month ever so slightly. But
see, it's a lie. It's a conspiracy lie made up by the mass media.
It's all fine.
Fake news.
Some bills will be cheaper, and then we'll all be paying for it for generations to come through our taxes. And luckily, those poor, beleaguered energy companies can walk away with their billions of pounds that they earned by being in the right place at the right time. Aren't they great?
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Should we do a podcast? I think I heard a noise in the hallway.
Were we planning to do a podcast today?
Well, I just thought we might, since we're not doing anything else.
Are we not just having a candid conversation, you and I, like good friends do?
No, we don't do that anymore. Not anymore. No.
ever since the disgusting reveal.
Ever since the filthy, horrible reveal. Koja says, our favourite one is that we're very water efficient as a household, and also Mam's never here, so between the two of us, we use less water total than the average person in the UK. Ah, well, that's good. Yeah, I'm not really sure how we use less than the average, considering that all three of us use computers fairly regularly. I guess computers are relatively efficient. None of us use the oven that much. We all like cook in bulk and then eat over the week. So that's one of the big ones.
We use less water around here because we just believe in drinking our urine.
Yeah, and washing in the urine. Yeah,
and washing and doing the clothes washing, the dishwashing, the car washing.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. But the cost of drinking all of the liquids needed to make that much piss has gone up because of the price of food. So it sort of balances out at the end of the day.
Not when you're a type 1 diabetic, it doesn't.
Even as a diabetic, there's a limit to how much liquid that's in you.
I piss for free.
Diabetics piss free.
Yeah. Slap that sticker on the back of my car and call it a day. All right, yeah, I'm podcast ready.
Should we do the countdown to Sinkers?
Oh yeah, cool. It's gonna go 3, 2, 1, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nailed it, mate.
Yeah, cooking does use power like crazy, so we try not to do it. We just starve.
Yep. Never eaten a cooked meal in your life, you.
I've never seen a hot dinner in my life.
When we go to meals, you're just like, I'll have the chicken goujons raw.
I don't think they roll the cost of heat into the meal. I guess they sort of do. I guess they sort of do.
I like this idea that it's like you order it raw,
and it's cheaper
because it's cheaper. Because you're like, no, sorry, yes, could I have?
I'm trying to save a bit of money.
So yeah, I'm really trying to save money. So can I have the wild mushroom risotto, no heat, please?
Maybe that's why they ask you how you want your burger done. Because the rarer you have it, the cheaper it is.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, you know what? I was gonna splash out. I'll have it well done. Ooh, big spender.
Ooh.
That's going to cost you £52 in grilling costs. Right, podcast.
Okay, all right, cool. We're gonna do the podcast. It's all right. We haven't got anything in the rewind section, so we got time to burn. All right. Oh, hold on.
Oh,
I need to know what I'm gonna call you. There we go.
Oh, yeah. What are you gonna call me? Ooh, give me a name. Yeah, give me a good name.
Okay. All right.
It's naming time.
It's okay, Laura. It's okay. Don't worry. It's fine. Everything's fine. All right. Everything's fine. Everything is fine. I only eat raw meat because it's cheaper. Everything's fine. Okay. You ready?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of this, the very Bunyip Review podcast. I'm your co-host, James the Bunyip Man Willis, and I am here with my co-host, Jonas Teletubby Garway. How you doing, Jonas?
Uh-oh.
Show us your big belly telly.
La la.
Come on, Jonas. Show us your big belly telly and tell us what's on the telly today.
Normally I'm so happy to fucking like improv with your name for like a good 5 minutes, but it occurs to me I know the nouns of things in the Teletubbies. I know there's a fucking crying baby son. I know there's a fucking Hoover called Nunu or some shit. But what I don't know is how to embody a Teletubby on this podcast.
Well, all you've got to do is you've just got to pick one of those nouns and say it over and over and over and over again.
Uh-oh.
Here's a side little story. When I was a little kid, I would make my mum make me tubby toast, and she would cut a smiley face in the toast.
Tubby toast.
Yeah, it was good. It's
Oh,
good
bit of
times.
tubby toast for the boy.
And then I turned 20 and she stopped doing it.
Yeah.
So this is a podcast. This is a podcast about media review. We haven't reviewed the Teletubbies yet, but maybe 1 month we'll be so hard up for stuff to review that we'll delve back into the past that far. This month I am delving
because
slightly into the past, but not nearly that far.
because as we all know, our prolific rate of television show review, where we review at least 2 TV shows a month, is drastically outpacing the rate of television production.
Well, as is pointed out in
We're
the chat, we have done Peppa Pig, so I don't know if Teletubbies are on Netflix, but if they are, it absolutely could come up. Teletubbies came out when you were 5. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, what's your
Yeah.
point? He watched.
Anyway.
He loved it until he was 20. What's your
Yeah.
fucking point?
Anyway, not the
Do
point.
something.
So we haven't got anything in our rewind section this month because it's only been 2 weeks since we actually did a last podcast. So we're just going to move straight into the TV review section. And this month, I'm up first, and I'm reviewing Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. There's a bit of a content warning at the beginning. There is some gore in this show, and it's particularly dark at points. There's a lot of sort of like shock value stuff. But if you've seen the YouTube versions, it's generally less than that. So you should be fine if you're okay with the YouTube versions. So Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared is a Channel 4 series. It's a brand new series, and it's sort of a sequel to the original YouTube series of Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared videos, which were, I think the first one came out in like 2011. It was a series of 6 videos kind of parodying children's TV, but with various like gory, scary elements in it. The show follows 3 main characters, Red Guy, Yellow Guy, and Duck, as they learn about life in a twisted children's TV show. I find that often descriptions of this show kind of undersell it, like focus on the shock value aspects or like just the children's TV parody side of it, and that makes it sound like a simple parody show. But I think it's much more than that. It builds on the premise set out by the YouTube series. The original show and this satirize often like the simplistic ideas and explanations that are set out by kids' TV shows, and uses subversion and satire to explore how concepts like love and creativity can be more complicated than they're often explained as, or can become corrupted and exploited in real life. The TV series half an hour format allows that concept to mature quite a lot. It's more than just subverting ideas with shock. The show can now really delve deep into satirizing its subjects. The Jobs episode, for example, the first episode in the series, is a deep, wide-ranging satire of capitalism and an almost nihilistic take on the typical "you can be anything you want to be" line often told to kids. If there was a unifying theme to this series, I'd say it's challenging the entrenched traditional ideas of things. Like the episode Family, where the ideal family is full of visions of grim British poverty, or Transport, where their car coughs itself to death on black ichor. But what makes this show shine is that there's so much else that's going on, and how much care is taken in every single aspect of it. The show showcases every type of animation and filmmaking you can imagine. There's stop motion, 3D, live action, and of course an absolute ton of puppetry, all with bucket loads of character. And it also understands how to tempt people's sense of mystery, weaving links and twists throughout the jokes and songs to give a sense that the world is much bigger and more complicated than we ever actually get to see. But at its core, it's just very funny. The humour is supported by the core and depth that they put into every other aspect, but the real advancement from the YouTube shows is just a solid understanding of pace and humour that leaves the show endlessly quotable and magnificently memorable. Episodes regularly feel shorter than their YouTube predecessors, despite being many times longer, ideas are more fully formed, relying way more on timing and humor and mystery rather than gore and shock. A sign, at least in my opinion, of the creators who have really improved over time. I think it's well worth a watch. And for those of you who are maybe put off by the intensity of the originals, I would still recommend this. It still has those moments of, someone getting their hand mashed up in a machine or something horrible like that. But it is quite a different experience while retaining what was good about the original YouTube series. Jonas, you said you hadn't watched it yet, but are you planning on watching it?
I am planning on watching it, yes. It just hasn't, no one's put it in front of me during my very rare free time moments. So it just hasn't been the show that I've clicked on, but it is a show I'm definitely keen to watch. I think through you, I'm a big fan of the YouTube series. I still remember us kind of watching it hungover after a New Year's Eve party or something similar, and watching
Genuinely,
your.
just mentioning it makes Fairy sort of go into shock.
And I was just about to say how it makes your housemate Fairy, it gave him a physical response because he couldn't handle it.
We were watching the TV show version of it the other day, and he noticed it was on and wouldn't come into the living room. He just stood in
Wow.
the doorway and talked to us
Yep.
from the doorway.
He knew, yeah. He can't even perceive it. So yeah, there we go. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the YouTube series. I really like the songs and things like that. Sing songs. Does it have songs that you kind of carry with you outside of the show? Do you still find yourself singing? What's your favorite idea? Spiders
Absolutely.
being creative.
Yeah, so it now has an intro. It now has it's now a full TV show, so it has an intro, and every episode begins with a song that goes, "There's three of us, there's three of us, there's him and you and me," and then it has this whole thing, and then they change it every episode ever slightly, getting more sort of deranged as the series goes on.
Right.
That's and it opening with that is a call to people who love the YouTube show of being like, it's still the same thing. You're still going to get these weird subversive songs that play on the idea of being children's TV songs, but are also, there's a in episode 2, which is about death. There's a song where they're preparing for a funeral, but it's like they're preparing for a party. So it's just them singing about all the different things you do prepare for a funeral and stuff like that. It's absolutely as quotable and memorable, and all the things that you remember from the original ones, they've brought all the good bits of that back. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, cool. Is there going to be, is it obvious there's going to be more? Do you think that they did what they set out to do in just making these episodes, and now they might move on to a completely different project that lets them kind of take everything they've learned and spit out something original?
It's interesting, right? Because so it wasn't, as far as I'm aware, it wasn't shown on TV. I think part of it was supposed to have been, and then the Queen died and it got pushed, and so I think it's only been shown online, which might limit its sort of scope. But I think there's two sides to this. One is that I think as a show it could last forever, right? It's sort of timeless and endless in that you could just do whatever you wanted with it and it would keep going. The plot at the end of the original YouTube series doesn't really matter at all in the new TV series. On the
Sure.
other hand, there are definitely things that run through it, right? And they do that kind of sort of lost mystery box kind of thing of presenting that there's a mystery but never really solving it, or whenever they solve something but there's another door or something like that. Then I think that part of me says, oh, wouldn't it be great if there was a big conclusive thing and we're leading towards something big? And part of me says, actually, that's not really the point of this show, and that mystery element is adding sort of additional depth or sort of additional tone to everything. But really, kind of the point of it is it will never get resolved. You'll never get there. I think if there were to be a new series, I would love there to be a new series. I'd want there to be. I'd want it to be like this. Like it came out of nowhere, it goes to nowhere, and it's just what it is. I think if they are leading towards something, if they want to build like a mythos and it's going to come to a finite ending, it's got to be really fucking good.
Mm.
And I don't know if anyone can live up to that.
Yeah, and that's just the thing, isn't it? Is we are aware of like the real the real value in a show that actually kind of knows how to leverage its own brevity.
Mm.
So shows that are just good and they just stop while they're good. Like they never stop being good because they don't keep going, because there's this idea that if it's been good, it can keep being good, right? Like and that has like an infinite amount of steam to it. And this is definitely a show that, it would absolutely suck if people, in several years were saying, yeah, season 3 is actually quite bad. I don't know, like you kind of season 2 sets up a lot of season 3, so you kind of have to watch season 3 for the payoff, but it's not good. So I don't know if I'd bother. Go watch something, you'd hate for that idea to kind of occur to what is already such a what is such a kind of unique gem of presentation and storytelling.
Well, so the series we got isn't what they originally planned to do for their TV series. They actually got a pilot done, like, because this is the original trailer came out like 3 years ago or something, and they had a pilot which was setting up to be like a town, like there was multiple other characters, and that Duck was going to be the mayor, and there was all this kind of like all this sort of political stuff in it, and they said that and that never came to fruition, and the reason why was because they basically went, this isn't the show we want to make, it's not as good as we want it to be, and they scrapped the whole thing, they started again, they built up the whole show from the ground up again. And that really struck me as like the story of these people who really cared about this thing they'd made. When interviews back about the original series was them saying that they had real trouble getting into the studio system, the TV system, and that's why they made the YouTube series, and that's kind of what the YouTube series is about as well. And so to see the fact that they got their Channel 4 series and it is exactly what they wanted, and that was a major driver for them for like scrapping things and rebuilding and getting to this point. It gives me a lot of faith that if they do something in the future, it will be what they want it to be, or it won't happen.
Okay. And you've watched this now. Does it easily, if there was another show that you want, like let's say you wanted to watch a show just like Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. Do you think that exists out there? Like, is there something that fills this niche, this hole, this idea that like you've got this well-written, well-represented, simple on the surface, but complex at its, in its depth, puppet comedy, light-hearted but horrible gore, like
I think it not really. I think that what they managed to really retain is the sort of like intense creativity that they were allowed to do with the YouTube one, that they weren't like being bound by any studio telling them that it had to be a bit less this or a bit more that or whatever. And the YouTube series really feels like that. The Channel 4 series really feels like that. It feels totally unbound by that kind of stuff. And I don't think there is anything else out there that takes this sort of intensely creative, intensely comprehensive approach to its ideas, right? Like there's like really good animations out there that satirize stuff, and there's really good live action stuff out there that satirizes stuff, but there's nothing where the whole just experience of it is the idea. It's so hard to explain, but it's the same feeling you get from really good sort of arty films where you're like, it's not necessarily about the plot, it's about the theme and the mood and the way it's constructed, kind of thing. And actually, probably the closest thing I could relate it to, and it's a very different meaning and very different style, but the closest thing I could relate it to is season 2 of Russian Doll, in that there were many scenes in the sort of mid to end part of Russian Doll that just sort of were there for the mood and the theme, and they didn't necessarily feel like they inherently connected to each other. That's what this is. This is that, but satire. It's sketch, but it's also plot, but it's also everything, and it just has that sort of feeling of being dragged or like drawn through an idea, rather than watching a story. I think,
Okay,
if
cool.
that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I know what you're trying to say, and obviously, like, I think you have to watch it to really know what you mean, right? But knowing what these creators kind of have done in the past, and it sounds like they really are working hard to perfect and present their vision, not a televised version of their vision, but no, just literally what they know, what they want to do, but just given more airtime, given more money, given more production, given a platform,
Yeah,
and that sounds really good.
from the conversations that they had, they did a live stream about it where they talked about their original pilot. They said that they had so many notes from the original American company that tried to put it on, that just sort of ate away at the soul of it. Like, oh, we should add an extra character here, and oh, we should bring in some like real life politics stuff, kind of thing. And at its core, this show is kind of timeless. It's sort of it's timeless, but also it's sort of rooted in our youth, the way that our children's TV shows used to be in Britain, and like just the way that sort of traditional life is in Britain. And some of it I think is relatable to the rest of the world, but a lot of it is really centered around that idea. um and they just like what they have produced is not that at all. It's absolutely not like politics and up to date and Trump and fake news and everything. It's exactly what the core of it was to begin with, and I think that's just great. I really appreciate that they were able to do that.
Yeah, and I suppose like, yeah, and you mentioned timeless earlier, and yeah, it sounds like those ideas really do manage to like see that through to fruition,
Hmm.
in that this show would be relevant at any time in any place, sort of thing.
Yeah, I think like there's there's an episode in this series, which is like about electricity, and it has that sort of like 90s early 2000s school video view of electricity. Like, electricity is what powers your light bulbs and things like that, like the really surface level thing. And now, like, if you were to bring it bang up to date, if it had to be perfectly modern, it would all be about TikTok and shit like that. And it's not. It's about like our sort of our memories of what children's TV is, kind of thing. And I think that's what gives it its soul, not like trying to be super relevant.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. I mean, yeah, I'm gonna watch this at some point. So I feel like I do have a really good understanding of what this show is. I was already sold on it just by its pure concept, but it is really great to hear that you have walked away from this show with the same positive, if not more of a positive impression than you possibly would have had going in.
Yeah, I Smooth Pikachu in chat says, I feel like it's a lot of it's about the idealism, simplicity we present to children, and the discomfort of finding out that life's not actually like that. I think that's bang on. I think that's what I'm trying to get across, right? Like, it's really about how do you teach a kid about death? Well, it's probably not with a talking coffin, right? Like,
Well, yeah.
or how do you teach kids about jobs? Well, you don't just put them into a quite dangerous factory, right? But that's what a lot of jobs are like. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, fair enough, fair enough. Yeah, I look forward to it, and hopefully I'll be able to bring it up in the next episode's rewind or something.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I look forward to talking about it with you in depth. I've already had like Sylvan watched all of it over the weekend, and then I just basically got a running feed of their favorite quotes through my WhatsApp, because it just has that same effect of like every line in this show is quotable. It's amazing.
Yeah, cool. So, yes. I realize now I have to be the one to prompt this,
Yeah,
of
you
course.
realize why
Um,
I kept like leaving pauses. Wait.
yeah. So James, you you are sat in your like TV show kids kitchen dining room table with your two actors, yellow guy and red guy, and you are Duck. um,
Pesky bee.
yes, and Red Man looks at you and goes, "Oh, would you look at that? The new episodes of Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared are out. If only we had a one sentence review to start this episode with." And then they just both look at you uncomfortably for like 10 minutes. And then after 10 minutes, you have to say your line. What do you say?
I say, an excellent improvement on our pesky YouTube show.
And then they look, and then all three of you look at the audience for the remaining 20 minutes, and the episode ends. That's my directorial cut of Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared.
I love it. I love it. I think my favorite line from the Jobs one, Laura's been quoting it a lot, where he says, "Why are they pretending they don't respect me?"
Yeah, which you've already said at some point since we started recording today.
Oh, have I? Okay. Well, it's
Yeah,
just in my head.
I think you said it in like our little pre-chat or something.
All right, we're going to move on. Jonas, what are you reviewing this month for TV?
Jamie, I am reviewing Cyberpunk Edgerunners. That's right, this is not the game Cyberpunk 2077. Oh, no, 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 no. You see, they've gone and done a cheeky little anime series on Netflix. For those of you that don't know, Cyberpunk 2077 is a video game that came out developed by CD Projekt Red, the developers of The Witcher, at like the tail end of 2020 or something like that. And it is based on Cyberpunk, which is a role-playing game system published in 1988 by Mike Pondsmith. So, but we're not reviewing those. We're reviewing Cyberpunk Edgerunners, which, as I say, is an anime. It's animated by Trigger. Trigger are a anime powerhouse studio. They previously created Killer Kill, Space Patrol Luluco, Little Witch Academia, and they had a film that came out called Promare or Promare. Anyone who is familiar with Trigger knows of their ability to blend like hype, aesthetic, and impact to create some of the most iconic sequences in modern anime. Now, one glance at any image or still of Cyberpunk Edgerunners should give you a strong sense of what the strengths of this anime are. Nothing using but the materials given to them from the existing Cyberpunk world, Trigger has managed to create a stylish, these stylish and iconic character designs with detailed and captivating environments, flashy, adrenaline-pumping action sequences, all the things that we know that they're capable of doing, while still giving real weight to the characters and relationships within their story. Edgerunners takes place before the events of Cyberpunk 2077, but it's not a prequel story. Very little of the plot has a direct relationship with the video game. However, it takes place in the same city, the same location. So we get glimpses of familiar environments, people, sort of company names and references and things like that. This story in particular follows a 17-year-old called David Martinez. David Martinez, as he struggles to fit in at his like elitist high school. He desperately wants to live a more exciting life, and it doesn't take long for that exciting life to find him. This is a story where there are no heroes. There is no grand villain or urgent problem that needs solving. This is a story about how a cast of characters rise and fall together kind of through their own hardships. It shows how Night City, which is where all of this takes place, can be a paradise and a nightmare in equal proportions to its population. This show will kind of use like gang warfare, corporate plots, drug abuse, childhood trauma, psychotic breakdowns as just a few of sort of its narrative vehicles to take us through this cyberpunk world. At times, it can be ecstatic, exciting, and joyful. And at others, it is somber, disheartening, and sad. This is a show that uses its characters and narrative to highlight the world around through like car chases. Sorry, I've read that wrong. And now I have to make an edit note because I skipped a line. Fuck!
Did you do the content warning at the beginning?
Didn't do the content warning. I will mention that. The tail end of my review, I will bring up the content warning so it flows a bit more naturally.
Or we could record it and then you could cut it in.
I would find that very painful.
Yeah, but it'd be fun.
No. This is a show that uses its characters and narrative to highlight the world around them. Neon lights that paint the background while characters blast their way through car chases. Vacant stares of characters that have lost their humanity after after they've implanted one too many robotic implants into their body. Those worldly elements, I think, are super lost in the noise of Cyberpunk 2077. The UI, this game that essentially asks you to break the rules of the world and overcome it, whereas this anime kind of keeps you immersed and shows you characters who despite identifying as edgerunners, cyberpunks, people who break the rules, they have to suffer the consequences of breaking the rules of their own city and things like that. I know people will be quick to dismiss this because it is an anime, and a lot of people see anime as a genre rather than a medium, I guess. But I think I would say one really important thing that I want to say about this show is that, like, despite its art style and despite the past works of the studio, and despite the fact that this is a show that contains nudity in it, I don't think a lot of the classic tropes of anime are present in this show. Nudity is very matter of fact in the world of Cyberpunk. Unlike most animes, like, sexuality isn't played for laughs, and the actual writing behind the characters and plot feels distinctly unique to this story. Original is the word of the day here, which is especially exciting given how Trigger tend to kind of recycle ideas and concepts from their past works. But here they've really taken a lot of the lore and materials of Cyberpunk and used it to craft something that they just wouldn't have made otherwise. I think blend everything that I've just said, and for me, we have, without a doubt, one of the most impressive television shows I've ever seen. Add in a really cool opening that's got a musical track by Franz Ferdinand. Ending credits written by David Padsialo. I've probably said that wrong, but he's a Polish X Factor winner. And every episode is an absolute joy to experience from head to cybernetic toe. Content warnings, I should mention, for this show are exhaustive. We have there's definitely sex, there's definitely violence, there's definitely gore. There is abuse, both of, like, physical and mental kinds. There are drugs overdoses. There is nudity. There is torture, and obviously there is, I guess you could say, there's a bit of body horror as well, with the fact that people cybernetically modify themselves, and those scenes are not comfortable. So I would say that if you are someone who would be sensitive to any of those things, none of those things are done in moderation. So just keep that in mind. Yeah, happy to talk about it if that's something you were worried about. Jamie, you've played Cyberpunk 2077.
I have.
You've seen an anime before, Peppa
have.
Pig. So,
Yeah.
what's the thoughts?
How much is this like Peppa Pig?
Very unlike.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I might not like it then. No, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I had it recommended to me by someone who, I guess, doesn't know my opinion on anime, because they said it's great. It's really anime. You'll love it. And I don't think we know each other that well, I guess. I thought we did, but that's fine. So is it originally in Japanese or English is the first question.
So Trigger Studios are a Japanese production house. So
Yes.
it will have been produced for Japanese dub.
Because it's interesting, because it is based on and presumably licensed from the original property the property by CD Projekt Red, right? So
Yes.
it's based on a product developed in somewhere in Europe. I can't remember. Poland, aren't they? They're Polish.
Yeah.
And yet sort of made for. Well, actually, I don't want to say a different market because these days that's really changed. Like a lot more people are watching stuff with subs and things like that. Did you watch it in English or did you watch it with the Japanese?
So I watched it in Japanese, and I might watch it again in English because I have heard from several sources that both are equally phenomenal in their own rights.
Hmm.
The Japanese voice acting is great. It is just it is just done with the right amount of care and deliverance that all the characters sound great, and it views well. As an English person reading the subtitles. I would say that there is one pain about this, which is, in Cyberpunk, when you have like a phone call with someone, you both speak to each other, but also your words appear as like a little UI in the top
Yeah,
left, like you're having a text message.
yeah,
When they do that in the show, you stop seeing subtitles for what the characters are saying because the UI appears in English. Like you
right.
literally see everything that they're saying in their text message pop up, which sometimes means you're now seeing 1/10 of the screen as like this box. And it's clearly put there for the audience, but it's also done in a very immersive way that it seems like, oh, this is totally what the character is seeing.
Mm.
So it's readable, but it's not necessarily legible at the speed of which the conversation flows.
Yes, yeah.
So, English dub would obviously fix that because you just hear the people say precisely what's on the screen anyway, and you'd be able to understand it. English voice acting, I don't know all the English voice actors, but I know that Giancarlo Esposito, aka Gus Fring from Breaking Bad,
Nice.
plays a particularly iconic character in this, and I already know that the character fulfills his archetype really well. So I haven't heard his voice, but I imagine it's great. So I think this is one of those rare things where anime fans generally have the whole subs versus dub debate, where you'll get laughed out of the room if you watch, anime in English, like by most hardcore fans. But this is a show that I think will break that. Will kind of break that negative.
Well, this is what I was thinking, right? Because normally when you have these Japanese, these animes that people really care about, like having the original and all that kind of stuff, it's because it's like, I know this is made by a Japanese company, but it's a Japanese property, often based on Japanese manga and things like that. Whereas this is coming from a world that we already know through a Western developer. I guess that sort of leads into another question. I've seen a lot of people say that player numbers for Cyberpunk 2077 spiked as Edgerunners came out, and there are clearly a lot of people who are either getting back into or are finding Cyberpunk for the first time through Edgerunners. I guess first of all, do you think that the Edgerunners like benefits from having played the game before, or even requires it? I think that's probably unlikely since there's a lot of people going the other way. Or do you think it enhances the other way around? Do you think that Edgerunners makes you enjoy Cyberpunk 2077 more?
I think Edgerunners would make you enjoy Cyberpunk more, right? Because you would see this really compelling story where people wield these weapons and get these upgrades, and they go to these Ripper docks, and they do these heists, and they work for these, like, and they navigate this night city. And then Night City kind of now seems like this magical playground that you want to explore. So you boot the game up and you get to see it with your own eyes, right? And you get to see under the hood a bit. Where if you played the game first, you know the city, you know the lore, you know the moving pieces, and then this story does what the game didn't really do, which is it actually takes a lot of those ingredients and says, right, because we can now actually control your perspective and pace and stuff, let's show you a really tight, compelling adventure with characters that you get to spend all this time with, rather than getting distracted by police pop-up side quests and loot inventory management and
Weirdly empty
glitches.
streets.
Yeah, and it just that's what I mean in my review when I just say that you play this and there's just you that noise of the game is gone and you
Yeah.
just get pure like environment, pure aesthetic, pure delivery of the things that make cyberpunk not just a compelling genre, but specifically in the case of this franchise and IP, a compelling world.
Yeah. Yeah, I see that. So, comparing it to Arcane, which is sort of the I guess the predecessor to this in terms of like big budget like video game tie-in that can stand on its own two legs. Arcane is obviously quite different to the actual game it represents, whereas this is a lot closer, right? They're both it's a story game and a story thing. How do you think the two compare? Because I know you very much enjoyed Arcane. Do you think this is better or feels similar or?
I think they're both similar shows in that a lot of care and effort has been taken into account in taking materials from their respective game worlds and using it to tell a genuine like an objectively good story that is well presented, well animated, well produced, well directed. Like it sounds good, it looks great, and just in terms of quality, though those shows both have very high bars. Where Arcane is quite interesting is if you went to go play League of Legends after playing Arcane, you wouldn't actually get to explore any of the locations in Arcane. You wouldn't actually get to like you don't really hang out with those characters you
Mm,
don't get to go to like a restaurant with them. You don't get to like hear them talk about their day. In League of Legends, everything exists purely in the context of an arena, right? Like a
yeah,
battle.
it's like Overwatch,
Um
isn't it? Yeah, like it's they talk about it, but you don't see any of it.
yeah, and so if you went and played League, the only thing you could really translate are the characters, but in a unique context. Whereas Edgerunners, you won't get to hang out with these characters. Like that's just a really big part of this show. Is it works really hard to not overlap with the game. But what you will get to do is you will get to walk through the streets. You will get to hang out at that building. You will get to see NPCs or hear about characters because their lore is somehow still relevant to the game world. And I think that's what Edgerunners does really well is it paints a really beautiful like picture of what cyberpunk is at its core, like thematically. And then the game is a playground for you to explore that theme really well.
Cool.
So I think that's the difference is that Cyberpunk is well, it's an open world action RPG, right? Like if your if your dream is to role play in the world from that show, there's a game for that. Whereas League hasn't quite given you that option yet. They are making a lot of video games right now, so it's
Yeah,
probably only a matter of time until they rule the MMO market or
yeah.
something. But for now, yeah, Edge Runners definitely does have, I think, sort of a grander appeal on that particular side of things.
Cool. All right. Well, I remember very little of my time in Cyberpunk. I spent quite a few hours in it, but I didn't. It felt quite empty and weird. I think I reviewed it on this podcast as such. So bear with me as this bears no resemblance to Cyberpunk at all. Um, you put on your cyber cape and you go down to your local cyber bar so you can jack into the net. And while you're while you're jacking in,
Yeah.
um, the cyber bartender, Roberto, who's a robot, comes over and he says, "Hey, I hear you watched that Cyberpunk Edge Runners show. How was it?" But you can't hear him because you're jacked into the net. But luckily, you're having a similar conversation with a net dweeb on the other side of Night City, and he asks you for a one sentence review, and you tell him,
Are you the netweeb?
I actually said net dweeb, but net weeb works too.
Okay, it almost fries my circuits to process the scenario you've given me. But after several reboots and an upgrade of my processor, I'm just about able to make out the words. Don't look over there. Look at me. I'm Cyberpunk now.
And just as you say that, it's so powerful it calls Keanu Reeves from the other side of the cyber barrier. Because that was a plot line, wasn't it? Or was it his
I'm
friend? I don't know. I don't remember. Anyway, we're moving on. So we've been watching some other TV shows this month. Jonas, you've been watching Rings of Power. I haven't started it yet. How is it?
Yeah, so I just watched the latest episode today, episode 7. It just this is a very good show. I don't know if I brought it up 2 weeks ago. I think I've watched it in the last 2 weeks, most of it.
Mm.
This is a great show, genuinely. This is good television. This is a return to Middle Earth, which kind of does like the most middle of the road fantasy possible. Like, I mean, and it exists in a like very neutral fantasy world, right? Where
I
it's
mean, that's
all
what Tolkien is, isn't it? It's like the progenitor of down the line fantasy.
exactly. So it's true neutral fantasy, but this is it is the best true neutral fantasy, I think. Like, it really is delivering on all of its strengths. It's reminding you why this world, why Lord of the Rings is as the progenitor and the absolute like origin of fantasy that it is for a lot of people. um it's such a it is really nice to be back in this world. We're seeing some characters from Lord of the Rings when they're younger. It takes place literally like 1,000 years ago, so it's elves. It's just elves.
Yeah.
But we're also seeing events and characters who very clearly are responsible for like influential events, set pieces, names, whatever items in the Lord of the Rings series. So we're seeing a lot of it be set up. And because this is more traditional fantasy, yeah, plot armor is very thick, but I think, when you do that kind of traditional like hero's journey kind of storytelling, you kind of do allow that. For the sake of this kind of idea that fate and destiny are more at play than they would be in any other genre. It's just good. It's really high production. I think everyone knows that this is one of the most expensive shows that's like ever been made or something like that. And it's like you look into a dwarf's eyes as they glow like amber at every single angle that they turn their head. That glow is like never, ever, ever dropped. And you just look at these like subtle details that they're doing to like everyone just to make them look just like a little bit more fantasy. And yeah, it's a good show. I really like it. I think it's a good fun adventure show that doesn't really have a mystery, but it has more of a, oh, I can't wait to see how they show me those events.
It sounds like it has some things in common with Game of Thrones as well. House of the Dragon in the sort of like um you're getting your prequel in, you're sort of seeing all this thing that everyone loves. We're now starting to see sort of the pieces that build it up. Obviously two very different styles of fantasy, but that same appeal of like seeing where the stuff that you really enjoyed began. I can see it being
Yeah.
appealing.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And it's doing a good job of just being like, yeah, it feels like it's related to Lord of the Rings. It looks like it's related to Lord of the Rings. But it is using modern storytelling techniques, modern production techniques. Um, it really is a modernized Lord of the Rings show through and through.
Cool. All right. And then the other thing you've put down here, and I have watched an episode of this, but you've watched a fair bit more, and you're going to be talking about it again next month, possibly. You
Might.
possibly. Well, we'll at least talk about it now, and if you don't talk about it next month, maybe I will. So you've been watching the rehearsal. Tell us about that.
Okay. Did I review Nathan for You on this podcast?
Yes, you did. Yeah.
Okay. So that guy has gone and got another fucking show. But as you know from episode 1, Jamie, the rehearsal is so one man, Nathan Fielder, is a fucking psychopath and takes the idea of like method acting to like a weird cosmic nth degree of like powerful cringe humor, but it's like effective cringe humor, and it's cringe because you can't believe he's asking people to do this and they're actually doing it, and oh my god, it's playing out. Like, it's watching a scenario play out that you don't think ever should have got this far. The rehearsal starts off with a simple premise. Nathan Fielder will let you prepare for a life event that you've got coming up. So in episode 1's case, a guy wants to break some bad news to someone. He's afraid of how they will take it. So Nathan Fielder builds a one-to-one replica of the bar that he's going to use to break the news, hires one-to-one like replica actors to play everyone who frequents that bar, hires an actor to play the person he's going to break the news to, but also gets that person to meet the woman he's actually going to break the news to so she can better embody the lady he is rehearsing to break the news to. This all makes sense. And then Nathan also just uses absolutely uncalled for amounts of subterfuge, misdirection, and sometimes just straight up like fucking lying scam work to make the lie more plausible to the man who is living this lie, basically. And the whole show is not about this one guy, but it's more an exploration of how Nathan Fielder uses these tools and this mindset of his to I don't even know what the right word is here, but to do more of what he's already doing, which is really, really fucked up.
To me, the first episode, it was equal parts incredibly funny and incredibly anxiety inducing. It was like the concept of rumination made into a television show. The idea
Yeah.
that you would just worry about everything and you just be like, oh my god, and what if this happens and what if that happens? And this is just someone going like, well, the healthy option is to prepare for everything.
Yeah.
And it's so clever and it's so incredibly well done in a way that, like, it's hard to tell what's real and what isn't. It's hard to tell like how much of it has been sort of like pre-planned in advance, like, uh, but at the same token that's sort of the point, I think. Like, yeah.
So what's really funny is like episode 4 had a bunch of meta moments in it where Nathan had a bunch of actors come to a workshop. Then he wanted to know how the actors felt about the workshop. So he ran a second workshop with a second group of actors, but rather than teach the second workshop himself, he sat and participated in the workshop as a student and then got an actor to play himself giving the workshop. And when he became the student, he picked a student from class 1 to embody. He then spends the rest of this episode basically learning how to be that student better, to the point that he lies to the student so that he can stay in the student's house and sleep in his bed and eat his food.
But the interesting thing about these things, and we'll have to cut it off soon because this isn't a proper review,
Yeah,
but we've
yeah,
talked
yeah,
about
yeah,
nearly as
yeah,
much as
yeah.
anything. But the interesting thing about these shows often is you think like, it's like with Darren Brown and things like that, where you go like, well, how much of it is real really? And then you ask yourself, does it matter? Does it really matter if he really did this? Does that make it better or does it just make it different? It's
Yeah.
yeah.
What's really interesting about the show is you can definitely see where some of the lines are definitely, and it is really quite like fucking horrific to watch them get crossed, pushed against, or outright called out.
Yeah, I'm looking
yeah.
forward to watching the rest of it. If you don't talk about it next month, maybe I will, because like the first episode really struck me as something weird and special. Like
Yeah.
it's not like anything I've seen before. It's really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyways,
We're going to take a brief break. When we come back, we'll be doing the video game section where we're going to talk about Overwatch and Strangers of Paradise. Then we're going to be talking about movies. And then finally, we're talking about our random Netflix movie, which was a little movie called Awake, which is what we are right now. So it's super relatable. And we'll be back with all of that. Stick around. We'll be back in a mo. Cool. That's the end of that section of the podcast. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Hello, Navi and Koto and Sylvan and Smooth Pikachu. What the fuck are you hearing? That's the description of an extra show. If you want to find out what that show is, Laura, we can absolutely watch it together because I'm going to be watching the rest of that show.
Like, and for anyone, because we're just people are watching us literally on the Twitch right now. My recommendation later is going to be a 1-hour video essay about the man who made this show, The Rehearsal.
I've watched half of that video. I will tell you right now, if you are already interested in The Rehearsal, watch it first. Because that video is very good, but it does spoil big chunks of The Rehearsal. So if what we've said now is interesting you, go watch The Rehearsal and then
Go watch The Rehearsal.
Watch Rehearsal related content.
And if you're struggling to watch The Rehearsal because it's not available in any streaming services near you, well, let me tell you about a little streaming service called Message Me.
Please don't advocate for crimes on my channel.
I didn't mention a crime at all.
Also, we'll probably talk about this whenever either of us review it. I was kind of meh on Nathan Fielder's previous one. This is much better. And the other one was good. Nathan View was good, but this is much better, I think.
Yeah, I fucking loved Nathan For You. But I never finished it, which is actually quite strange. But yeah, The Rehearsal, it's only 6 episodes long. Man, it's just
if you want the files, Fotsy Lotsy, make a big Minecraft wall with the episodes you require, and Jonas will post them to you in Minecraft using an iron golem.
Well, what I'll do is I'll send you blocks in Minecraft 1 by 1, and for every block you get, I send you like a kilobyte of the episode.
No, even better. If it's dirt, it's a 1, and if it's stone, it's a 0, and you can just do it byte by byte.
Binary.
The whole file.
Nice.
You make a redstone comp. All right, we're gonna be back in a mo. We're gonna grab a quick break and grab some water, and then we'll see you in a mo. Bye. This is how the pros do it. Oh no! No!
I was not.
Just trying to get a rifle.
Are you beating them to death?
No. This is how this is going now. This is how this game is played now. This is Silent Assassin suit only. Stop!
Oh, you dickhead!
We start off by building. Oh shit! Right, that's a good start. Oh shit! Oh my god!
What? Oh!
Run! Oh my god! What are you doing in this game? I see what you mean by eagles.
Oh shit! Why do I not learn from my mistakes? Why do I never learn from my mistakes? Finally understand how autopilot works. Please don't accelerate me into the planet. Oh, shit. Christ! What? No! I lost the sight! No! What happened there?
I don't want to talk about it, Jamie.
Can I have my fishing rod, please?
With my. It says I've met 34 out of 35 people. But I've met
Health, I need that health kit.
Wall's coming.
Oh my
Take-
god.
Take my
Oh my god. No!
Take my metal.
I don't know if I'm actually gonna get this health kit in time. I had 1 health left.
Jesus Christ.
One kill. Oh, watch out! One kill.
Amazing.
And you got a screenshot as well from that.
You can never have too few guns in a gunfight.
You can never have too few guns. What about 0 guns? That's too few guns in a gunfight.
That is definitely too few guns. You can never have more.
Well, I died. Oh, drum roll. It barely started, I'm already getting murdered. Ah, did you just blow me up? Just like first open, like a fucking comedy clown car or something. Oh,
Yeah.
jumps.
Jumped again.
I just realised that the drug lord was literally shouting at me in the day. I don't think I'd do well in a high pressure drug lord environment. I'd be dead in a heartbeat.
It was like.
Jesus! Oh my god!
I completely forgot about that. I completely and utterly forgot about that.
His name is Mr. Deliver. He will give what you can't.
No, I got this. Oh, you gotta be fucking kidding me. This is a masterclass, my friend.
Your kill was witnessed.
Oh fuck! Where the fuck did you come from?
Shoot him! Stop reloading!
I'm a cross-dressing sailor dominatrix who does the early shift.
I was not expecting that.
Oh, it's way sourer than I remember.
This
Oh
might-
my god.
You're.
I'm the Great Destroyer.
Boris Johnson.
Borage Dungeon. Borage Dungeon build robot. I think Maddie's having a breakdown and she's supposed to be in charge of that.
I don't want excuses.
Who does this?
The lettuce and the cheese on this one.
Stop pressing the goddamn button! Stop rotating the fucking thing! It's me all along. Oh no, they go by themselves! Yes, and I'll do it again. Oh my god! Look at it! Look at this slide!
Slide to that.
Look at the swings! Hello everybody and welcome back to the Bunyip Review podcast. And
James,
Yes?
can you say a Shakespeare quote, but in the voice of Duck?
No, I don't remember any Shakespeare quotes. Hold on, I'll
Like-
Google.
Like to
Shakes-
be or not to be. That is the.
No, I'm gonna do a random Shakespeare quote. Random Shakespeare quote generator. Quote pen. He's the bard. He's the man. He's got a quote for every mood or occasion. Okay, give me a quote. Cry havoc and let slip the dogs of war.
What was funny is when you said he's the bard, he's the man, he's got a quote for every occasion. I thought that was the quote.
I did at first when I started reading it and then realised it was wrong. How about men at some times are masters of their own fates.
Love it.
All the world's a stage, and all the men and women are merely players.
Have you tried contacting them just to say, look, if your voice actor calls in sick or
If he
something
happens to be in an unfortunate accident,
something happens to him, I'm here.
and then they'll go, Duck has already died multiple times. All right.
As has the voice actor several times.
Yeah, actually, the episode Death was inspired by the death of the voice actor of Duck. All right, we're going to move on to our gaming section. And this month, I'm up first and I'm reviewing Overwatch 2. Or I guess Overwatch? I guess. I have already reviewed Overwatch once, but it's a different game now, I think. Basically, it's here. The patch has dropped. Overwatch is dead. Long live Overwatch. A while ago, I reviewed Overwatch, and when I did, I kind of reviewed it as if it was a thing everyone just inherently knew. It was sort of a force of nature. It's been around for what feels like forever, and in its heyday, it was one of the most popular shooters in the world. And then it all started to fall apart. The patch cycle got slow, and that caused the player base to stagnate and move on to more interesting things. Team 4, the internal team at Blizzard that made Overwatch, decided that to fix this issue, they were going to have a full relaunch. Overwatch 2 was set to have a full PvE campaign, that's player versus environment, or a fighting bots campaign, co-op missions, skill progression, endless content. They were also going to commit to regular, constant updates for the PvP side, with new maps and heroes and game modes and cosmetics. And now, about 3 years later, multiple Blizzard upper management scandals and the departure of the man who was the face of Overwatch for its whole life, Papa Jeff, Overwatch 2 is finally here. In its current incarnation, it's a bit of a refocusing of the original plan. PvE is no longer a full-priced expansion releasing on launch. It's now been pushed back to next year and will release as free episodic updates. What's been released now is the PvP side of things, with all its major gameplay changes, as well as a complete ground-up rework of the cosmetic and microtransaction system. Gameplay-wise, the biggest change is dropping a tank and making the game 5v5. This game has a major impact on the pace of the game. Combat feels faster and scrappier. Engagements are often less defined by where the tanks are or what mirrors and counters are required, and now a lot more on individual skill. This feels good as it is. Choice of character feels a bit more personal now, as the risks of picking the wrong DPS or healer doesn't mean you're doomed to being sat on by a Zarya for the entire game. It also means that the role of tank feels supercharged. At first, I thought it would feel a bit like you were just a moving wall without the ability to pincer and peel with your off-tank. But the characters have been balanced in a way that makes you feel more like a terrifying, destructive bruiser. Arisa now feels indestructible, creating zones around her that are just difficult to operate in. Junker Queen feels aggressive and ruthless, setting the pace of engagements and favouring your pace of play. Other changes help freshen the game up. The UI feels clean and new. The character select screens have excellent animations that show off the characters' personalities. There's a ton of new contextual voice lines, like Reinhardt commenting on his team not having any guns. But aside from these things, the core of the game has kind of barely changed at all. The only new game mode is Push, which in practice feels a lot like Payload, but with swingier outcomes. And this isn't necessarily a bad thing, as I've always really liked Overwatch. But it's also what feeds into this sense of discontentment with how long we took to get Overwatch here. Overwatch has always had an excellent reputation that then gradually eroded over the years. And this relaunch was built up in players' minds as like the second coming, not just a return to form, but a whole new experience that felt like when you first picked up the game all those years ago. And it isn't that. It's more of what you love, and it's a commitment to keep it alive this time, but it's not a brand new experience. That being said, one part of it has gotten worse. Monetization has changed from a loot box system to a battle pass one, and probably the stingiest battle pass that I've seen in a while. Almost all cosmetic content has been locked behind expensive microtransactions or the battle pass, and while that is common for modern free-to-play games, it feels like a major downgrade from the regular trickle of unlocks from Overwatch 1. I'd say all in all, it is fun, but it's not new. It's a big patch, and while I'll be back playing it, I don't expect it to change long-time doubters' minds about the game. Jonas, you played a little bit about it. What do you think?
Yeah, like I think I have a lot of the same criticisms that I've kind of heard echoed around the internet, which is just this has been a very long wait and a lot of build up and a lot of hype and a lot of kind of marketing and pushing for the idea that this was going to be a sequel, a new game to Overwatch 2,
Mm.
not Overwatch A New Dawn, not Overwatch Cataclysm, not Overwatch. Okay, we're going to take a little bit longer for this patch. Bear with us, guys. Overwatch 2, and it is, in my limited experience, very much the same game, but I just haven't played it for a few months, so things have changed. So it has the same feel to me as when I come back to Apex after not playing it for several months. There's a few new characters. The characters that I know have their abilities changed a bit, and the maps are slightly different. And all that stuff about voice lines and like new cosmetics and sort of updates, those are all things that I think kind of naturally occur within a game that kind of has like a live, I forget the terminology now, but
Live
that
service
system,
game, yeah.
live service, that's it. And I get that Overwatch is so old now that it makes sense to try and give it a new relaunch, a new branding, a new push to give it this new breath of life. But having been a little bit hands-on, I don't know if I feel that breath of life is there or not.
I think that the problem is that I genuinely think that if the PvE had come out with this and it had been a full PvE thing, we would be feeling a bit different about the branding. I think that if you booted the game and now there was a whole second button before you got to the game which said missions and you had all these character skill trees and you had all this progression stuff, you'd be going, oh shit, that's a whole nother game in my game
Yeah.
now, right? I think the thing what's happened is that because they've pushed all of that stuff and they've sent that back to next year, but they've kept all the branding and they've made this their launch. Now, a few months ago, all of the launch stuff was saying early access in October. It doesn't say that now. It just says launch, right? It feels like, if this had been the launch of a new season, right? If this had just been season 36 or something starts, all new voice lines, battle pass system, blah 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 blah. I don't think people would be nearly as negative about it as they have been about this. Obviously there is the whole lack of content for 3 years, which is kind of heinous in a modern sort of shooter, like hero shooter like Overwatch. But kind of regardless of that, there was a big expectation set up that wasn't paid off, even though they were doing things that many other games had done and been praised for. Sea of Thieves, they brought in battle passes and they brought in their captaincy update and they brought in like a seasonal system of content. And when they brought it in, they didn't do a big, it's new Sea of Thieves starting again, and everyone loved it. Everyone was like, oh my god, like a whole new direction for Sea of Thieves. That's amazing. So yeah, I get why people are upset by it. I think it hasn't made Overwatch the gameplay worse, and in fact, in a lot of ways, better. Like it feels more polished and balanced, and there are more just little nice features, like little nice, graphical or audio or like content buffs. But it's still Overwatch. It's still at the core of it the same thing.
Yeah, polish the car for 3 years. It's still the same car.
Yeah.
It is the game that we know. It is shinier, but some of us were expecting a new car. Where's our new car?
Yeah.
Like I think that's the general feeling I've got at the moment. And obviously, I know this doesn't really feed into the idea of reviewing this game, but there is also Blizzard, right? There is
Yeah.
Blizzard Activision. There is their reputation that is, I mean, we haven't done the segment with Riot in a while, but we know that Blizzard isn't okay. We know
Yeah.
that Blizzard is still going through these major upheavals and changes, and there's still a lot of criticism on how their internal, management studios and things like that are working. Microsoft have bought them, and this feels like an attempt for Microsoft to actually clean house a bit and kind of get rid of the cobwebs, get rid of the dirt. Everyone, sweep everything under the rugs, so that when they have their when they do open their doors with a brand new product and a brand new launch of something, they want to look their Sunday best, right? They want to kind of show off this reformed Blizzard. But because we don't have that confidence, and this game has kind of failed to wow people with its launch, quote unquote. Yeah, there's a lot of that. Nothing has been outright offensive, but everything has been disappointing.
I just think that almost everything they've done wrong could have been like well, you're still trying to get it right, had they handled everything leading up to it better.
Yeah,
And we were in a weird time where on the one hand people were saying, why aren't they marketing it? Why aren't they marketing it? They haven't put any marketing materials out, like, right up to a week before the launch day. There's no like trailers or any shit like that. I was like, why aren't they doing this? And on the other hand, going, God, you hyped it up far too much. You hyped it up far too much. We expected a whole new game, kind of thing. And I don't know. I think the original sin is them calling it Overwatch 2 and then not following through on the part of that was the 2. But part of it as well is just that I don't know what they could have done at this point that would have satisfied anyone. Like,
I mean, I think honestly, the best thing they could have done, and it's too late. Well, it's not too late now, but we used to have Jeff sit in front of a camera and spend a good 10 minutes talking about the development mindset, right? These are why they made these changes. These are what we were noticing in-house. These are what we were hearing from players. These are the changes that we hoped to make. They seemed unrealistic, so we made these changes instead. We're hoping that it will have this balance improvement. We're going to be monitoring this over the next 3 weeks. Like these really sensible one-sided conversations where someone just goes, Overwatch 2, it's called Overwatch 2, but here's what you're actually going to see when you log in for the first time.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they have done some of that, but you're right. There was no like, I guess, and maybe this strikes the fact that Blizzard's sort of become sort of, not that, maybe a little bit detached from its audience as it's gotten to a bigger company. But the stuff that they tried to talk about early on was not the stuff that people were worried about, right? Like when the battle pass was being announced and all this kind of stuff, they weren't really talking about what that would mean for the game and what these worries were. They were talking about like Kiriko's going to be cool, isn't it? And we're going to do a more intensive patch cycle and things. And people were going, yeah, but like, what about how I interact with it? How the money works? Like, what's changed, kind of thing.
Yeah, and a lot of that kind of marketing is designed largely to appeal to people who either already don't have an established idea of the game / its competitors, which is another way of saying young people. Young people who are going to boot this up on their console or PC because it's now a free game that they can boot up, and they've heard a lot about it and it looks cool. From the outsider's perspective looking in, this is the new game that they can start playing, and it's doing less to address the existing, sort of gameplay market, player base, who do know what this game can be, has been, should be. And yeah, it just feels like this is more of an attempt to draw in a new, slightly less well-informed market than it is to actually impress Yeah.
I agree. I think there's been a lot of talk in the Overwatch community recently about the stuff that's targeted new players, right? Like how we lost loot boxes, which, whatever, but that was a constant trickle of like cosmetics that doesn't exist in the game anymore. Now it's purely battle pass, purely currency, all this kind of stuff. There's not that kind of background accumulation of things, but new players won't even notice that, right? They'll go into the game, they'll unlock their heroes as they go. It will be a brand new experience for them. And it kind of sort of slightly strikes me as the sort of analogy is the idea of Brexit, right? That when it was announced that there was going to be an Overwatch 2, everyone had an idea of what they wanted that to be, what they thought that was going to be, but no one really knew, like, it wasn't defined at all. Like, I think Blizzard were defining Overwatch 2 as the PvE side of it, and the PvP side of it was this sort of undefined, like, it could be anything, 5v5, brand new heroes, a whole new game mode kind of thing. And nothing's ever going to be like, I don't know how you ever make that palatable to your existing audience whilst also making some stuff just explicitly worse, right? Like
Yeah.
I do think the gameplay is better, but the everything outside of the gameplay is explicitly worse, right? And yeah, I don't know. It definitely feels like it's aimed at new players now. It definitely feels like with the free to play thing, it's aimed at bringing in a new audience. But then part of the argument for free to play originally was that the player base was dwindling. Well, maybe it wouldn't have if you kept updating it. So like I don't know. It's difficult. It's complicated. I do still think that with the player base resurging after after this announcement and bringing people back, my major problem with Overwatch, apart from like a lack of new content, was a lack of player base. Like it took ages to get
Yeah.
into a game, and I don't have that problem now. When I queue for games, I get in like a couple of minutes. So for me, I'm kind of happy with Overwatch 2 because it's done what I wanted it to do. But I get why
You're
people are
profiting off
underwhelmed.
this game.
But I get why people are underwhelmed. I do
Yeah.
get why people are underwhelmed. It would have been nice if there were, there's still a massive lack of tank and healer heroes. There's still like, there's less maps in this version of it than there were in the previous one because even though they've added push maps in, some of the maps are bugged, so they're out of rotation. Like it's I don't know. It's I don't think they've made Overwatch worse. I still think the game is good, and I think it's actually better than it was in the dwindling age of its patch cycle in Overwatch 1. But it's also not a new game, and it's not a 2.
Do you want to take that last sentence and call that your summary, because you did summarize quite well there, but we can do a scenario if you want.
That yeah, you can do the scenario, and then I'll just say see what I said before. I don't know. It's up to you.
Wow. Okay.
If you make me try and say it again, I will not remember a word of it.
Hi guys, this is Jeff from the Overwatch team. I'm back to do one last video. Thanks to my good friend and player of the Overwatch games, the Bunyip Man. The Bunyip Man recently has asked me to come back and give him a platform so that he can tell you all of his thoughts on Overwatch 2. So he's just going to provide you with a one-word, sort of one-line summary now. I'll give it over to you, James the Bunyip Man Willis.
I think it's better than Overwatch 1, but only slightly, and not a whole one better.
Thank you, Bunyip Man. He'll be available to play in our upcoming patch coming out on November 9th.
What would my
everyone.
abilities be if I was an Overwatch character?
Bit of social anxiety.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you're more powerful when people aren't around you.
Yeah, yeah.
You're stronger when people aren't looking at you.
Sort of the antithesis of an Overwatch character who's supposed to clump up.
Yeah, you don't like to be looked at. So if no one's looking at you, you're more powerful.
I'm explicitly the worst character in the game. I don't even have a gun. I just sort of run.
Yeah, no, you don't strike me as a gun user.
What class would I fit in?
What?
What class? Am I DPS? Am I healer? Am I tank?
You're a tank, but you do have 10 health.
Uh,
I mean, Jamie, if you and I suddenly got placed in an Overwatch situation, do you think we'd last more than a second?
no, I don't
Like
think
our
so.
real selves?
This is the thing about Overwatch characters is that they all have like lives outside of the thing. Like Zarya's a weightlifter and Lucio's a DJ, and I don't think that those people could just suddenly join combat like that. Like
Yeah, you're right.
why does Lucio as a DJ also have a sound gun? Like does he fire that into the audience at his gigs? Does he
Have you
like
not seen
launch
David?
people? He has the like the the sound wave where he can push people back. Does he like use that to stop people climbing on the stage?
Yeah, you're not seen Calvin Harris like live shows where he
That
just
bit in
goes.
Calvin Harris's show where he punts an audience member like hundreds of feet across the audience.
Yeah, and he plays that song. I feel so close to you right now. It's like a force field, and then a massive shield rises up. And he
He just
gets
slams
his
the ground.
and he's like, I don't remember what Lucio says actually when he does his ult.
He
Anyways,
goes,
we should move on.
drop the beat. Or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, we're going to move on to Jonas's game of the month. Jonas, what are you reviewing this month?
I'm reviewing a game that has a very short, simple title: Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin. Content warnings for this game. There is definitely violence. I think there might even be some swearing. And there's like a weird gaslighting going on, I guess. I'll tell you what, the opening cinematic is very kind of weirdly dark and gory, so just skip that if you're worried about it. Anyways, Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin, which I'm just going to refer to as SOP from now on, Stranger of Paradise. It's a sort of prequel to the original Final Fantasy game, and I mean like Final Fantasy One. This is developed by Team Ninja, who made Neo 2, a game that I played and reviewed earlier this year. SOP definitely has a unique identity as a Final Fantasy game, even compared to some of its more modern action RPG siblings like Final Fantasy VII Remake or 15. If you've been on the internet in like the last year or 6 months and you've seen memes of an angry man with short hair shouting, "I want to kill chaos," then you already know 70% of what this game is. SOP starts with the protagonist, Jack, declaring to two men that he's never met before that his mission is to kill chaos. They then all pull out some crystals and fist bump. He then continues to paraphrase his desire to kill chaos to everyone he meets for approximately 25 hours of gameplay. Given that this game was developed by Tetsuya Nomura, the name behind Kingdom Hearts, you can either applaud the game for having a much simpler story than Tetsuya Nomura is known for doing, or you can play the whole game, get confused and Google the plot after the credits, see Tetsuya Nomura's name in the credits and go, that makes so much sense because he made Kingdom Hearts. Anyways, the memes absolutely represent what this game is on the surface. You slash, punch, stab, cast spells, and finishing move your way through levels, each of which are based on other Final Fantasy games, by the way. You do this through recognizable Final Fantasy enemies, eventually reaching reworked boss designs from other Final Fantasy games, and let Jack use his distinctly Doom-like finishing moves to rip and tear your way to victory. As a Final Fantasy game, Strangers of Paradise, or SOP, definitely rewards its existing fans with memorable locations, bosses, and mechanics. Players unfamiliar with the franchise will struggle to appreciate a lot of the design choices in this game and may be left asking, why, a lot of the time. However, both groups of players, old and new to Final Fantasy, will be pleased to know that the action gameplay is absolutely top notch. As seen in past Neo games or Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, SOP's combat largely makes use of a sort of break system that you and your enemies have. get your opponent's break or stamina bar down to 0. You force them into a stun state, and you get to press a single button to finish them off, in which Jack will brutalize his opponents with his bare hands, turn them to crystal in the process, and shatter them. Players can equip weapons. Each weapon types comes with their own unique combos and special attacks that can be customized. You'll pick a class, each with its own unique skill tree, which can be completed and then allow you to unlock more advanced classes, all of which recognizable from previous Final Fantasy games. You can equip armor and accessories with stats and bonuses that sometimes let you pick perks from classes that you're not playing, thus introducing a bottomless well of customization options. Do the same for all your party members. Pick from one of, 20 levels or something like that, and you're off. Progression in this game is fast, but that doesn't mean the game is over quickly. It took me about over 30 hours to finish SOP, and while the levels are surprisingly dense and designed in such a way that when you reach the end, you unlock a little shortcut that'll take you right back to the beginning in just a few seconds, most of what your gameplay time will actually be will be you sat in menus, spending skill points, looking through armor to figure out precisely which one gives you slightly more stats than the other armor you have. You finding out that your inventory has a space limit, so you have to go to the smithy and dismantle your armor for materials that you probably won't use in a pointless equipment upgrading mini game. Point is, like, you'll find that you just spend way too much time in the game's like side systems and not enough time in the action, or you'll find the game difficult that you'll wish you spent more time in those menu systems. And so you'll spend either more time butting your head against a wall like a boss that you can't beat, or sitting and optimizing yourself in those systems. None of this prevents the game from being fun, though. It's incredibly rewarding running into a fight, turning all of your enemies into crimson crystal dust using an array of special attacks and iconic Final Fantasy spells. My biggest criticism is that it makes me spend too much time in the in the menus and not enough time with sending all of my friends clips of Jack, who puts on Limp Bizkit and mansplains to people that he wants to kill Chaos. Jamie, you've definitely seen memes of this game. I know you have.
Yes, I've seen the memes. I am memed to the limit. Yes.
Has anything else about this game gotten through to you at all? Like, did you know what this game is?
I knew it was a Final Fantasy game. I didn't realize it was a full-on action game rather than a sort of classic Final Fantasy turn-based thing. It sounds interesting. I guess my first question would be that, like, do you feel that the it feels like there's a lot of RPG stuff in here which isn't maybe necessary because it's an action game that's had this stuff. You know, does all the menus and all the equipment and all that kind of stuff, like spending time optimizing equipment in menus and shit like that, does that feel like it's there because it's an action game that requires some Final Fantasy in it? Like, does it feel like if it wasn't a Final Fantasy game, they wouldn't have done that?
Well, I don't think so, because Final Fantasy games historically have a very like kind of minimalist equipment system. Normally, everyone gets one piece of armor, one weapon, and one accessory, right? And that's actually the depth of a Final Fantasy equipment system. Games like God of War actually have like equipment systems similar to this. Maybe Witcher has like an equipment system similar to this, and those are
Okay.
action games.
So you're saying
but they are also
it's a bit like the Far Cry one where you have to like collect like a few skins and like make a new bow or something, and you're like constantly upgrading little weird bits of your equipment all the time.
It's less that. It's more that you kill an enemy, they explode into 5 different gloves. The gloves are about the same level, but they're slightly different colored rarities, but they also give you a bonus to different classes. So if
Right.
you're trying to be the sword and shield class, you might want to wear the gloves that give a bonus to sword and shield classes. And in that system, there is really good ideas for customization. Like, I can play a class, and that class is very strict about how it plays. But if I completely change my equipment, that class might feel very different. Like, I might
Okay.
go get a bonus from the red mage while playing like the assassin or something. Or vice versa. I might play like the tank, like the warrior, but I might go get myself a bonus from the dark knight, and that will make the warrior feel a bit different. That's what the equipment does. But navigating the actual menus and optimizing those numbers and taking time to do inventory management, that's the stuff that really kind of forces you to like wade through a thick bog of
Right.
inventory management.
So it's nothing particularly new to RPGs. It's just handled poorly.
Yeah, that part of it is really like it sticks out.
Okay. So who do you think this game is for then? Because like you say, there are a lot of things that are quite different to a normal Final Fantasy game, but also it is like in plot supposed to be a prequel, right? Do you feel like, because some of those things felt a bit sort of incongruous, right? The gameplay is very different, which would make it feel like it would be an entry point into the series. But then, like you said, there's a lot of design choices that only make sense if you understand Final Fantasy. Sort of, what angle do you think they're expecting people to come at this from?
Yeah, and honestly, I don't know if I know the answer to that, right? Because the marketing for this game was absolutely whack. Like, when this game was coming out, people weren't talking about the gameplay or the cool finishers or, man, I can't wait to go punch like a giant Malbro in the face with my monk class with fire fists. And that is fun. They were talking about this weird Japanese created but American testosterone army man who shows up in a fantasy world with a side character that looks like a JRPG protagonist and a black guy. I don't even know how to define him any more than that, really. A black guy, and walks up to everyone and grunts angrily in English, "I want to kill chaos." And like, yeah, who is that for?
I mean,
I
so does it feel like it's like sort of Star Trek Lower Decks? Like, we've got this franchise, we can have fun with it. It's knowing gags that fans of the series are going to get, and like we're sort of playing with the medium. Or does it feel like this is legitimately what happened in the prequel to this thing? Like, yeah, it's goofy and weird, but that's the plot, and this is now the groundwork on which all of the other Final Fantasy games are based.
I think it was, guys, wouldn't it be cool if we made a good action Final Fantasy game? Someone said, yes, let's ask that company to go make it. Oh, but who's going to write it? How about that Kingdom Hearts guy? He's not doing anything. And then that Kingdom Hearts guy said, leave it to me.
He said, "Have you heard of Final Fantasy?" And he went, "No." And they went, "That's fine."
Yeah, because it's not like Kingdom Hearts literally uses Final Fantasy characters in it.
Oh well, yeah, fair enough.
Okay, clearly I thought Kingdom Hearts would be a good like entryway latch point for you, but I've
It was a
clearly,
Sony property, so I never played it.
yeah, it
I'm a
is
full
on
PC boy.
P
I
it's on PC now,
don't think,
but
is it?
no, that's, yeah, I think it's on Epic Game Store.
I think you're lying to me.
I mean, I played this on Epic Game Store as well. It's the second
You're
game I
right.
bought on Epic.
They've put it up on PC. Well, maybe one day
Yeah,
I will actually play Kingdom Hearts.
play
God, they're
Kingdom
so
Hearts.
expensive.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Anyways.
How old is this game, and it's still 50 quid?
Oh yeah, because they do 2.8 and 2.9 and 3.6 and 4.1 releases, and
Yeah. What the fuck is a
they're
2.8?
it bundles 3 games together. So there are 3 games in there. That's, or 2 games and a movie. I don't fucking know anymore. Look,
What the fuck is this game?
but Jamie, your visceral reaction to glancing at a Kingdom Hearts property should inform you precisely what this exact producer is capable of doing if given another franchise to work on. So yeah, I think it was more a concept, and then one guy said, "Don't worry, guys, leave it to me," and it became quite iconic of what this man is known for. But that doesn't make it a like Kingdom Hearts games play good. You just have to play the right ones, right? There's too many of them. This plays good. This is a good game. Like I said, Neo 2 was a great action game that like genuinely felt very compelling to go through its levels and face its challenges. This makes it slightly easier, so it's not nearly as difficult, although there are still challenges. And the class system is cool. Like if you play a warrior for a few levels, then suddenly you get to upgrade to the Marauder and then the Berserker and then the Dark Knight. And these classes kind of get more and more advanced and customizable and interesting with their abilities until by the end of the game you become this powerhouse god because you've managed to perfectly find a playstyle that you love and an equipment set that absolutely leverages your strengths like in the right way.
So, do you think that you would have enjoyed this as much if it wasn't a Final Fantasy game?
Yeah, I think if this gameplay, like I do enjoy this a lot because it's a Final Fantasy game. Let's like make that very clear. It has enemies that I like from Final Fantasy, like the cactar, which is a little cactus that sticks its arms out. And you find cactars and they run around and they lure you into other fights and they dodge and they taunt you. But when you get them, it feels good to get them. And cactars are always one of those enemies that like it feels really good to beat them in Final Fantasy games, and they found that feeling. And yeah, like there are levels where it's like, oh, this is from Final Fantasy X. I love Final Fantasy X. I can't believe I'm playing an action sequence in Mount Gagazet of Final
I'm
Fantasy
playing
X.
Blitzball. I'm playing Blitz. It's all Blitzball.
I
Oh, it just
wish I was
it
playing.
never stops being Blitzball.
Wish I was playing Blitzball, but no. So for so many reasons, as a Final Fantasy fan, sorry, it does do a lot for me. But the gameplay was its core strength. I think,
Mm.
like genuinely hitting enemies, getting them to the break point, pressing that finishing button, the same way that it feels good to snap on an enemy in Doom and do like your little 2-second kill animation while in the middle of like frenetic combat. This game does it very good, the action good.
Cool. All right. Well, so you are an American army man type, and you're teleported into a fantasy world. But your catchphrase isn't "I want to kill chaos." Your catchphrase is a one-sentence review of this game, and it is.
Listen to me. Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin. There's a good game somewhere in there. You just might have to dig a little to find it. It's not a hunger. It's not a thirst. It's a need. I need to tell you that Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin is a good game somewhere in there. You just might have to dig to find it. It's a hunger.
Oh, all right. Well, we'll try and finish up the stream soon so you can sate that hunger.
That's exactly what Jack says about killing chaos, and I just needed to make sure I delivered it in a similar cadence. Thank
Oh,
you.
good. Wow, this has been a whole podcast of impressions. It's been excellent. All right, before we move on to movies, I played a little game called Dome Keeper, which was good fun. Sorry, I've just been handed something for later. We just played. I played. Oh, God damn it! That totally threw me. But thank you very much, Laura. But my brain's just gone entirely to mush.
Fucking hell, Laura. Sabotaging this podcast from start to finish.
Okay, so I played a little game called Dome Keeper. Dome Keeper is a little indie game that's basically. Do you know what Dig Dug is, Jonas?
I'm going to say no.
So Dig Dug is an old game where you basically played like a little drill character, and you would drill into the ground, and you'd be like looking for resources, and then you'd use those resources to upgrade your drill and shit like that. This is basically that, but also a roguelike sort of defense game. So you have like a dome, the titular dome that you are keeping, which has a gun which sort of you can move from side to side and shoot to enemies. and then a hole in the bottom that you can drop down and drill into the earth and find resources that you can drag back up to your thing to upgrade your gun and your dome and blah 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 and repeat and repeat and repeat. And so I played a few rounds of it. Basically, the way you finish a level in the normal mode is that at some point you will find a big crystal underground, and then you'll find little switches that turn it on. And once you've turned it on, once you drag that crystal up to your base, you've won the round. It was fun. It was satisfying. It was like I literally bought it because I had earned enough money from selling Steam trading cards that I could just afford it on a whim, and it looked cool. If I don't play anything by next month, which I think is unlikely, but if I don't, maybe I'll talk about it in more detail. But yeah, does it sound interesting to you at all, Jonas?
I think I want to see a bit. I would want to see a bit of its art style. To kind of.
It's like
I don't know.
pixely, but it's got like it's got a nice feel to it. It's also it's sort of like brown and black. Like it's like kind of monochrome, like oranges and blacks kind of thing.
Is it does it is it like roguelikey or arcadey? Like there are fixed levels, or is it like procedurally?
It's procedurally generated.
Yeah.
So the dome part of it, you unlock different bits for it. Like you can unlock a big sword. So instead of having a gun, you just swing a fuck off sword along the dome.
Sure.
And you can unlock like different like I haven't unlocked any of them, but you can unlock like a different sort of defensive systems instead of just a shield dome. But then the sort of underground part of it is random every time. And every time you finish a mission, you can bring one of the upgrades, or every time you die, you can bring one of the upgrades from the previous game into the next one. So you start with like just whatever you thought was your favorite out of the last round. Which sort of gives incentive to keep going round and round, and like, you know, like unlocking stuff. But I will say from first glance, when I completed the first one, I was like, that was really fun. I really enjoyed that. Maybe I'll come back to that. But I didn't see myself being like, I gotta go back to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see.
A good game at like £3-4 so far. Maybe
Cool.
if I play a bit more, maybe I'll have a different opinion. But for now, that's what I'd say.
All right. Cool. Good to know.
Cool. All right, we're going to move on to the movie section, and I'm up first this month. It's time for the movies. So this month,
movies.
Welcome to the movies. Come take a seat, grab some popcorn, enjoy the show.
All right. Let's go find some popcorn.
Please, sir.
Do we have?
Sir, the movie's about to begin. Please turn off your phone. No, sir. The movie's about to begin. You're disturbing other people.
Yep. No, sorry. I just.
Sit back and relax. Sir. Sir. People have complained. People have complained
about the movie.
No, they say you really stink, and they've asked that you were moved to the big plexiglass booth we have at the back of the cinema for
the VIP seat. Yeah.
If you like, sir. Yes, sure.
I knew my plan would work.
All right, I'm reviewing. So this month, we only had 2 weeks in between podcasts, and I didn't have time to watch any movies at all. So instead, I'm dipping into a recommendation from my past. I'm picking a movie I have very much loved in the past and recommending it to you all. This month, I'm talking about Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. A content warning, the movie is basically entirely about depression. But as far as I remember, there's no actual sort of like real peril or anything. Well, I guess a little bit, but there's no sort of like gore or anything like that. So, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is a 2004 film by Michel Gondry, who made one of Jonas's favourite things, Kidding. And it also stars Jim Carrey as a character called Joel, a man who's recently gone through a breakup with the love of his life, an energetic and chaotic woman called Clementine, who's played by Kate Winslet. He goes to visit her at work one day, only to find that she doesn't remember him at all. And he finds out that she's taken part in a strange medical procedure to erase him from her memories. And now she literally does not know who he is. Joel decides to get the same procedure done to forget her, The procedure involves going to sleep and having a crew of technicians run a machine that pinpoints and removes the specific memories. The rest of the film takes place within Joel's mind as we explore his memories and discover what happened between him and Clementine. As we know from Jonas's expert reviews of Kidding, Gondry excels at exploring loss and what that can do to a person. Joel feels real, torn apart by. No, I'm going to start that line again. We're going to have to put an edit in. I'm not even sure what that means.
I've got a needle in my arm, so you just go ahead, mate.
Yeah, I'm just putting it in. Let me just work out what that means. Oh, I see. Right, that makes sense. Okay.
It's. Do you have a ghostwriter?
No.
Are they writing your reviews like hours ahead of the
If
podcast, and then you're
only.
just sitting down and
If
improvising?
only. No, the ghostwriter is me writing it hours ahead of the podcast and then forgetting what I meant. It's not a matter of the words, it's a matter of the emphasis I put on the words that really fucked me. Okay. Joel feels real, torn apart by that quite extreme and yet intensely relatable idea of a relationship that's formed the foundation of your life falling away. Clementine feels a bit manic pixie dream girl through most of the film, which I can charitably describe as a caricature of what Joel sees to be his favourite qualities in her, and uncharitably described as one of the lazier characteristics in the film. But the real beauty in the film is how Gondry merges visuals, performances, and his ideas to explore complicated emotions with such clarity. Every scene feels equal portions of abstract and relatable. The muted fadedness of everything, the fraying edges, and the often muffled sounds recreate the experience of intense dreams or the feeling of remembering distant memories. And this all works together to build an entrancing love story that's both beautiful and heartbreaking. Told from the end as an exploration of the path, and that flips the usual relationship getting together story into a full exploration of the deep loss felt at love's end. All of this is held together by Jim Carrey's excellent performance. Carrey is an excellent comedic actor and can find the joy and exist in the absurdity that is needed to make these dreamscapes make sense. But he's also able to embody the sense of pain and loss in the ordinary and common experiences in life. He is the heart and soul of this film. I would very much recommend this film. It's a beautiful thing. It uses its time well and it explores an incredibly common pain we all go through in an innovative and compelling way. Jonas, have you seen this film?
I have, but it has been quite a long time since I saw this film. So I remember liking it at the time that I watched it, but I don't think I was really able to appreciate like a lot of its like cinematic depth, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Like it was just a good film at a time where I appreciated a good film, but nothing more. So this would be quite interesting for me to rewatch, and I would be open to doing that, especially because you made two comparisons there. You know, obviously it contains Jim Carrey. Kidding contains Jim Carrey. Said it was written by Gondry.
It's directed by Gondry, yeah.
Directed by Michael Gondry.
Michel Gondry.
Michel Gondry.
It's
Okay.
French.
So it's occurred to me that I've never learnt this name, Michel Gondry. I've never paid attention to this name when watching Kidding, or really paying attention to who directed it. So yeah, I guess it's. I would like to know more about what this man does and what he's been known for, because I clearly like two of his works a lot. But yeah, so he made Kidding, and Jim Carrey has Kidding. They both have Kidding. I love Kidding.
You can definitely see a lot of the sort of like, I don't want to say prototype for Kidding, but like, there's a lot in this film which is like almost the sort of training ground for what they ended up doing in Kidding. Like, it really explores something that is, you know, common to all of us, that sense of loss through like a relationship ending, like the sort of pain of like love ending in that way that's, you know, not mutually good for everyone. And it does it in a really inventive way that, you know, keeps you drawn in through the sort of inventiveness of it and creativity of it, but you also like heavily relate to it, right? You can't say that you've done any of the scenes because they're all dreams and they're all sort of abstract and weird, but you intensely just understand and relate to it because it's something that you've felt, that almost all of us have felt quite deeply in ourselves, and it's such a strong emotion. And Kidding does the same thing in dealing with the idea of loss, right? In the ideal of death, in that it's something that's sort of primal and deep in you, and everyone knows that feeling, um, through the lens of someone who's trying to write a children's show, which is quite sort of, you know, out there for a lot of us. Like the idea of, you know, many of us will probably at some point have to explain to a child death, but they won't have to do it through the lens of a camera to thousands of children and pretend to be like totally happy all of the time. I think they like there's a really sort of I think it's really difficult, and I think they do it. It's a really, like, this is a really clever example of, yeah, just being able to tap into something that everyone, you know, feels really deep down inside, and teach you something new about it, maybe.
Yeah, I always love this film for using like a mechanism that hasn't really been done in media before, like at least not of its time. The idea that you know people experience a pain or a problem that they want to go away by just deleting their memories.
Mm.
It's like cool. That's like layer one of building quite an interesting like narrative and world. But then using the process that a professional has to go through to do their job to delete your memories, using that as the setting to tell the real story, like the real kind of film and the meat of it is kind of more through the perspective of these onlookers, these people who are just here to do their job,
Mm.
but they're the ones sitting inside Jim Carrey characters, Joel. They're sitting through Joel's memories and mind, and we are experiencing the story through their experience of them doing their job to get rid of Joel's memories so that we can understand his relationship with Clementine, which I think is really fascinating. What I guess what I would like to kind of explore a bit is, so this is a 2004 film. When we have films that are of a certain age, we start to notice that everything that that film did has kind of been replaced or done better by a modern reiteration or a modern version or something like that. So in fact, I can't even be bothered to think of examples, but classic sci-fi films,
Yeah.
eventually we get modern sci-fi films, and we kind of say, well, why would you go back and watch the classic? These new ones are actually doing those things very well, those themes and ideas. Does anything do that for Eternal Sunshine of the Spotlight Mind? Is it Kidding, which isn't a film, but obviously is a show that is replicating and also innovating on?
I don't think Kidding does. I think that Kidding is exploring something else using a similar tool set. I think that like Kidding is very explicitly about, you know, death and about someone, like, and that kind of loss, and I think that this is not that, right? Like by virtue of the fact that he sees Clementine in real life at the beginning of the movie means she's not actually gone, right? And this movie explores the concept of fate in a way that, like, that Kidding very much doesn't, right? Kidding is about the fact that, things don't go perfectly. Like, there is no kind of like overarching fate that will make things work out in the end. And this movie kind of questions the place of fate in a normal romance movie in a sense. I don't want to get too much into it, but it does. I think that there's been many movies that have tackled the idea of memory, because I think memory is such an interesting sort of thing to look at as a screenwriter, as a filmmaker, right? It is fallible, and yet it kind of makes up who we are. Like, it is our experience of the world, of the past. So you've got movies like, I absolutely love I can't even remember it now. Memento. I absolutely love Memento
Yep.
because it plays with the idea of memory sort of creates threat out of that idea of not knowing your own past, right? That's quite a threatening thing. It's something that's quite abstract and yet relatable. We all know about forgetting things, but like the idea of that sort of being a chunk of ourselves gone is quite, worrying and terrifying. I think that Eternal Sunshine, looks at that from a very different viewpoint, and one that's fresh and hasn't really been explored in any other way, like to my knowledge. Like, it's about the active choice to remove this part of you to not feel pain. And maybe you question, like, is that pain just as much a part of you as the memory, and are you just making a trade-off rather than a helpful procedure or something? I think it really does something. It really explores ideas in a way that I haven't seen anyone else do, and specific ideas that I haven't seen anyone else really tackle.
Cool. So definitely a film where if I was like, man, I've already seen that film, shall I just go watch a modern, updated version of it? It just
Yeah, I mean, can you think of anything that would be even close? Like,
trying to think of films that explore memories, maybe a bit.
I think
I mean,
the big
yeah,
thing is not necessarily even the memory side of it, right? It's about the idea of dealing with loss and how you deal with loss, and how much of you you'd be willing, like how much you'd be willing to give up to not have to deal with loss, right? Like giving up your own memory, that slowly dawns on you as actually being quite a big deal when you get further into the film, and then sort of saying, well, like, is it is memory something that's just like a storage bank for painful things, or is it who we are, kind of thing? I can't think of another movie that deals with the idea of self and loss and like wanting to give up stuff to avoid that kind of pain in the same way, or that would give you that same kind of complete idea. Yeah, it's interesting. If at home, if you know anything like that, please message us, and we'll come back in a few weeks and say we've replaced Eternal Sunshine off the list. Don't even give a shit about it. Now it's sometimes darkness of the filthy thoughts.
it's been replaced with this Netflix random film.
It should be, yeah, Eternal Sunshine, a movie explicitly about being asleep for most of it, is replaced by this month's movie, Awake.
Yeah. Fun fact, by the way, while you were talking about memory, I was like, I could have sworn I've seen something where a character like gets their memory wiped for like reasons. And I realized it's actually the game I reviewed. There's a lot of memory fuckery going on in Stranger of Paradise. Like, it has a plot. It's needlessly confusing, which is why I didn't feel the need to bring it up. But yeah, it was on the tip of my tongue. I was like, where has someone lost their memories? What show have I watched?
Well, you heard
Yeah.
it here first, everybody. If you feel like you want to watch Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, don't. Play Strangers of
Play
Paradise.
Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy
Basically the
Origin.
same thing, but
Yep.
updated, so it'll be fine.
1-to-1. I don't know that Jim Carrey does any voice acting in it, but why don't you play the game and then make a judgment on that first?
I've heard he does all of the voice acting in it.
I heard Kate Winslet is all of the enemy scream sounds.
Yes, and I've
Like when
heard
an enemy dies.
I've heard that Mark Ruffalo plays the cactus.
Oh man, and fucking performance of the year.
Excellent.
Give
Beautiful.
that man a Grammy, an Oscar, and a BAFTA.
Give that man a cactus.
Give that man a cactus.
He'll love it.
Okay, Jamie.
Yeah.
You you wake up one morning and you look at Laura and you're like, "Good morning." She goes, "Who are you? I don't remember you, But otherwise, I have no complaints about the fact that I just woken up in a bed with you.
she paid for the mind wiping stuff, but because she paid all that money, she couldn't afford to rent somewhere else. So she's just staying in the
No,
flat
she just
still.
still stays with you. But and then you're like, no, this is emotionally affecting me. I don't want to deal with the emotions.
I'm
So
having
look,
feelings.
I'm having feelings, so I'm gonna wipe my memory of the film Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, because that'll make me feel better. Look, I don't know where I'm going with this. It's not as bad as the Cyberpunk one. And then when the operators go into your brain and they look at your memory of you watching Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, the whole thing is represented with them tumbling through an eternal void with nothing but like typography of your one line summary of this film floating past them. What sentence do they fall through?
So I was going to say it's a film I'm glad I can remember, which entirely goes against the idea of having it taken out of my brain.
And then seeing that, they cancel the job, and they give Laura's memories back in the form of a lovely bit of fruit. They say, "Eat this."
Pull them back into her ear. A big bucket of memories poured down
Big
the spout.
bucket of earwax.
Lovely, lovely. All right. Can we take a very brief break? I need to pop to the loo, and I won't be able to focus on your wonderful reviewing. So
that was so overwhelming. You gotta pee.
Do you want me to leave you on, or do you want me to put you on?
Just leave me here. I'll
Okay.
entertain this this lovely chat room.
Be right back.
All right, who have we got? We've got a smooth Pikachu. Pikachu in Detective Pikachu, I think, is animated to have like quite a bit of fur. So the idea of him being smooth to me indicates that he's been shaved. And I don't know if I like that imagery. I don't know if I want to think about what a shaved Pikachu looks like. If anyone knows what that looks like, keep it to yourself. Navi, how are you? Thanks for chit-chatting, Navi. We got a ghostwriter revealed. You can't recommend Kingdom Hearts for those reasons. If I was on Steam wishing for a stream sale of Kingdom Hearts, because it is bloody expensive, yeah. Modern JRPGs have been removing inventory limits. It just doesn't add anything. Yeah, I think with Stranger of Paradise, they're trying to make sure that you don't like... I think the game's memory is weirdly... I don't know if the game's memory is affected by how much is in your inventory. That would be a good mechanical reason to do that.
Are you
but
talking about
in any
smooth
case,
Pikachus again?
I'm talking about... I was saying how... so you know that Pikachu has fur?
Yeah.
So a smooth Pikachu is a shaven Pikachu.
Well, so Laura thinks that Pikachu is just smooth, like naturally. Like you don't have to shave the Pikachu. The Pikachu is smooth.
Well, no, because it's a mouse and Detective Pikachu, he has fur.
I know. and Laura claims that the Detective Pikachu is a travesty.
Is an anomaly.
An anomaly, because her evidence is that in the games he's drawn with a flat line.
Yeah, almost everything is in those games. Jesus Christ. The Meowth the cat looks like it's drawn with a flat line, but it is a cat.
I agree. Madness. Utter madness.
Like, what animal isn't drawn with quite strict black lines in a children's TV show?
So what she claimed, and this is the closest I can get to agreeing with her, is that it's very short fur. So it feels smooth, like
a 5 o'clock shadow.
No.
Double.
Like when you rub like a smooth animal.
What does that mean?
No fur. What are you talking about? Then what is it? It's just skin. It's just flesh. Oh, you totally lost me.
No, sorry, irredeemable.
Just flesh.
It's wrong, and it's irredeemable. We should move on.
Pikachus can't just be flesh. Like yellow human skin.
No, right, podcast. Get me
Okay.
out of this conversation.
All right. Okay. You can just hear Laura laughing from the other room. Okay. We're on to Jonas's movie review of the month. Jonas, what are you talking about this month? It better not be horrible yellow human Pikachu things.
It isn't. It's Mortal Kombat.
I feel like you didn't commit quite to the Mortal Kombat part. You pulled
Oh,
back
sorry.
just slightly.
Okay, so it's
That's what I expected.
Is that a bit better?
Yeah, your mic has gone incredibly quiet now.
Has it
Yeah.
actually gone really quiet? Oh, what? No, come on. It must.
It's gone back now.
Okay,
It went really, really quiet because it was upset with you shouting.
Yeah, I guess it is trying to adapt for the noise. Look, okay, I'm reviewing Mortal Kombat. Content warnings. I was just trying to think, like, how do I do the rest of my review? Content warnings
It's
for
all
this
falling
game,
apart.
for this film, not game.
Oh my
This
god.
film. There is gore and violence in Mortal Kombat. I really don't think that will surprise anyone who knows what Mortal Kombat is. This is a film based on the video game series by the same name. They did make a film in 1995. I have not seen it. I will not talk about it. Mortal Kombat 2021 is, Mortal Kombat, the video game series, is a fighting game series that I have relatively little experience with. I've played a few of them casually, but I'm not particularly familiar with its like characters, roster, world building and stuff. Thankfully, this film, while it definitely contains fun references for fans or even just like people who at least casually know hallmarks of the game series, the film's introduction and premise are simple enough that people unfamiliar with the games can get a lot of enjoyment out of this. The film starts in Japan hundreds of years ago. A family is slaughtered by an assassin capable of creating ice. This man who can summon ice kills the father of a family. And as he dies, the father of this family swears revenge from hell. Fast forward to modern day, where the descendant of the killed father has a dragon birthmark on his body and is then targeted by the same ice assassin who now goes by Sub-Zero and gets this main character, whose name I've already forgotten, gets recruited into a group of champions who must now face warriors from another realm in a tournament known as, well, you know,
Tekken.
Mortal Kombat. Fuck off. The film looks, feels, and plays better than it actually has any right to. Everything about its presentation is competent enough to make this film more than bearable. Maybe even good. The fights are dynamic enough not to feel amateurish or simplistic. Deaths are brutal and gory in a way that reminds you that this film knows what it is. Fighters will defeat their opponents, pause, and sometimes look at the camera and say like a single line like flawless victory or fatality. The use of the pause is always just enough to make me think, are they gonna say the line? This isn't a perfect film by any margin, but given how poorly video games are adapted into films at the moment, and that goes doubly true for fighting games, I think this is a film that is much better than it has any right to be. I'd recommend it to anyone curious about it for the fun of it. It just has genuine fun moments of comedy. The CG looks great, and it knows what it is. Honestly, yeah, not bad. Jamie, Mortal Kombat?
I think I vaguely remember watching some of the original one. And it
The
being
1995 one.
yeah. Yeah. I think people have like a fond association with that, even if it's not that good, I think.
So like Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat both got these really weird 90s movies
Maybe I'm thinking
that
of
are
Street
like
Fighter, yeah.
maybe they're both like really slapstick, really like they kind of take themselves seriously, even though they've got people wearing like bright colored spandex and like you know how we know how to like modernize game designs now for movies, like the same way that Marvel modernizes like costume design from the comics.
Mm,
But when you try to do these things like back in the 80s and 90s, people would just try and do it like one for one
yeah.
from one medium to the film, the Hollywood, the whatever, and it would just look garish. Like, yeah,
So so
we're past that point now.
so does this feel like a does this feel like it's taking its content very seriously then?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Like,
And do you think that's a
if
good
you
thing?
um, it this film feels all the better for it, right? Like
Mm,
when it wants to break. So let's say it breaks character, right? That whenever it chooses to know it's a video game film, it will break character like once every 15-20 minutes for like one line, and then it will go back to being its own serious film. And otherwise, like when it's breaking character, it's like that one's for you, Mortal Kombat fans. And then the rest of the time, it's just like it's just a pretty well produced CG action film, if that makes
mm,
sense. Like,
yeah.
yeah, it's weird that there's this guy that's sucking up souls and this other man with lightning eyes and they've all got these round hats that they wear and stuff.
So
Like,
does it feel like it needs that association with Mortal Kombat, or could it just be any old like martial arts film, right? Because you're saying that they drop in their little like video game reference, but for the most part, it's this action movie. Um, does it feel like it needs that, or could it just be anything?
well, I mean, there's something about watching these characters who are humans be told, look, if you fight hard enough, you will unlock powers that you can use in the combat tournament. And then this fucking comedy, like the written for laughs, like cutthroat mercenary Australian guy who looks a lot like Fuse from Apex Legends, like within 5 minutes gets the ability to shoot a laser out of his eye. And he's joking about how that's much cooler than throwing fucking fireballs or being able to throw a sharp hat like these fucking losers. And it's like that the writing is funny. It's a
Mm.
genuinely like it's a genuinely good execution of the themes. If you try to do that without calling it Mortal Kombat, it would seem unnecessarily forced or hammy.
Right.
But this feels like the writers know what their end result of the film has to be, and they found a good way to get there from somewhere, right? Like,
Yeah.
let's have the characters not start with the powers. Let's have the characters not know about the tournament. They learn about the tournament. They get the powers as they go through a training montage. The bad guys pop up throughout the film doing these little pot shots or one-on-one fights and things like that. It's competent enough, but it knows what it needs to be by the end of the film. It needs to be Mortal Kombat.
So, you know, going back to what we originally said about people really loving the original ones as sort of like a cult sort of bad film, um, do you think that this will have a similar feel for modern Mortal Kombat fans, or is it too sort of serious but not good enough that it just sort of becomes maybe a forgettable video game adaptation? Because you said it was good, but you didn't say it was like exceptional. Everyone has to go see this. Do you think it's just going to sort of fall into the background where maybe like the earlier ones, for all their campiness and sort of leaning into the joke, might be more memorable?
Yeah, I think if this was a film that was going to have staying power, you and I would have seen more GIFs, or we would have seen like a YouTube clip, or we would see some of the like some of the slightly more campy, hammy line, some of that wall breaking. I
Mm.
think we would have seen that used out of context by now. Like, yeah, I think we just would have seen it popularized in some other way if it was going to have the staying power. But the film is confident that it thinks it could have a sequel because it
Okay.
sets up for a sequel. So if it manages to do that, it could be the case that they manage to improve. Mortal Kombat 2 movie ends up being so popular that people need to go back and watch Mortal Kombat 1, and maybe that becomes the start of like a new trend in video game live action adaptations.
Maybe
Because
all movies become Mortal Kombat movies.
maybe Mortal Kombat is the only movie we have left.
Maybe it becomes the Immortal Kombat.
Yeah, immortal pacifism.
Yeah, yeah. All right.
Immortal sitting around.
Well, this is interesting. It was interesting to hear about it because I do remember it coming out, and I do remember people being somewhat disappointed by it. So it's interesting to hear your point of view on it. I guess we'll move on, but before we do, Jonas, your whole family is killed by an assassin, and your parent goes to hell and says, "I'll get you from hell. I'll tattoo my son." And you find yourself with a tattoo on your just above your your penis, and it has a one sentence review of the Mortal Kombat movie, and it says,
The longer I make this summary, the more bold I am being about my penis size.
I didn't say it went onto your penis, it was just above it. So what you're
Oh.
actually saying is the longer it is, the more like belly space you have.
The more crotch girth. I hate that I've stayed on this line. Okay. My tattoo says to all those lucky enough to see it, wow, this is funner than it should be.
Imagine having that written above your penis.
Oh.
Wow, this is funner than it should be.
Like subtitle, you're in for a good time.
Well, there we go. There we go. We've all learnt something today, haven't we? Oh my god. All
Hey
right.
mum, if you could just unhear all of that.
You can put a warning in the break. You can say just for your mum. Just could you skip the movie section for this for this month. All right, we're going to move on to the Netflix randomizer. And this month we were asked to watch a movie called Awake.
Were we asked to watch a movie called Awake? Did someone ask us?
I feel like we're asked by the randomizer. The randomizer is a beast.
I never realized it was so polite and that there was this optionality to
No,
it.
it's the kind of ask that your boss does. It's like, could you do this for me? And it's like, if you don't do it, you will be fired.
Right.
But yeah, so it's polite, but there are consequences for not doing it. You don't want to know what will happen if you don't watch the Netflix randomizer. You don't want to know. It's pretty horrible.
I mean, yeah, neither of us have failed to watch a Netflix randomizer yet, so
No, and I've
let's
definitely
just
many
pray
times
it never happens.
many times I felt like it might happen, but then I've thought about the consequences, and that's put me on the straight and narrow.
Many times you thought it might happen, but then you woke up a little bit earlier on Tuesday morning.
Yeah, I was awake, as is the title of this movie. So this movie is a sort of disaster horror movie or disaster action movie. Really, there's not that much horror in it. In a world where there is an event, and the event means that suddenly all electricity goes out, but more importantly, nobody can sleep. They all stop being able to sleep, apart from our main character's little girl. And thus begins all the usual disaster movie cliches. Mum is asked to take her daughter to some scientists because this daughter might be the only cure for the sleep problem. Mum is skeptical of scientists at first, but then realizes that that's probably the safest thing to do. They end up going, all hell breaks loose, and yeah, chaos. Jonas, how did you feel about Awake?
I think it was. I don't hate it.
Hmm.
I wouldn't recommend it to anyone.
Hmm.
It was a film that I watched.
I kind of agree. It's not bad, but it's not good. It's so incredibly by the numbers, and you know it hits all of the points where you go, "Yep, that's where you should be in this movie at this point." Yep, yep, that's what should happen at this moment in the movie. I don't think any of the performances were standout, but also none of them were so dreadful that it put me off the movie. Um, they kind of wrote themselves a bit into a corner with the premise, in that it's unfortunate for them that all of us have seen what worldwide disaster response is like in the wake of COVID, but the premise is that everyone will basically be like out of it in 4 days. And they start the government response literally the night that people stop sleeping. And, all of us know that that's incredibly unrealistic. They would be 4 days in and still debating whether it had actually happened in real life. Um, I don't know. Yeah. Did you have anything that stood out to you at all?
So I think I said this in a message, but there was a scene where a car floods because it hits a lake or a river or something. I thought that scene looked quite good. I thought it was quite dramatic. It definitely felt quite like a good thriller scene to me.
Yeah.
And but it also happened really early in the movie, so I kind of guessed that there would be very few consequences to this car flooding. And it was just used. It was kind of just used as a mechanism to like start the apocalypse, basically.
You pointed out when we were talking about it earlier about how there's a lot of scenes later on in the movie where they're driving down roads where they just sort of the scene's very short. Like it feels like they don't really get into any kind of meat in it. There's a bit where they pass sort of like a cult of people who are like stringing people up and they attack their car, and it just sort of happens and then it's gone and it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, they attack the car. The car gets away safely. No one inside is injured. They learn nothing. They lose nothing. They gain nothing. And then it jump cuts to them being at the destination they were trying to get to, even though I guess the road they were trying to use was obviously blocked. So they obviously figured out a different route to the place they were going. And
Those
given that,
those road scenes very much felt to me like they had one day to shoot on that road.
yeah, I don't really know how to judge it from like the production side of things, but yeah, it definitely felt like right, we're gonna have an event that sets up this problem. We're gonna portray what it looks like to be in the world while this problem is happening, which is, like, yep, every disaster film does that. But we're not gonna set up any like likable protagonists that would make the audience feel something if they were to win or lose. We're not gonna set up like kind of any very interesting like Chekhov's guns that will be like really interesting to re-explore later in the film, and we'll set up clues to a puzzle that can only be solved once the characters have brought those pieces together through moments of realization and communication or something like that. Like
I think that's the big thing, right? Is that there's no selling point to this at all. Like every scene is the absolute bare bones it needs to be. Like you say, there's no Chekhov guns that you're excited to see pulled off. There are Chekhov guns, but they're like, they happen and you go, yeah, I can see where that would go. Like you're not that interested in seeing it pulled off. And the big thing is, the whole premise about this idea that people can't sleep, and that's going to be the big driver for the things. It has so little impact on what the main characters do. Like they don't fail anything really because of the sleep problem. That it could be anything. This could be a zombie movie. It could be about a poison gas. It could be about like a mind control beam. It doesn't matter, right? The only time that sleep ever really affects anyone is, probably to give an excuse for some of the slightly dodgy writing, but also mainly just to make background characters a bit more manic. like the main characters don't really have any kind of impact on them through that.
So I've just been thinking about a narrative, like something that happens in the film. At one point in the film, the main character is forced to sneak around a man with a gun. She sneaks around. She considers getting into conflict with him, but doesn't, because the man leaves the scene, and so she is able to get what she needs uncontested, which is a car. She then gets her family in the car, and they drive to where they need to go. Now, the writers obviously thought this was a waste of the two threatening characters. So how are they going to have those two threatening characters come back and for that gun to be relevant? Well, she'll just drive up on a car crash later to find their two dead bodies, thus eliminating them as potential threats, even though they were kind of a little bit like foreshadowed. They were foreshadowed as a potential threat at the very beginning of the movie when she says, "Who are those two guys?" And another guy goes, "Them, don't worry about them." So they're dead now. She didn't have to do any conflict with them, and she gets a gun out of it. Now, later, she tries to teach her daughter how to shoot this gun. The daughter doesn't like the idea of shooting the gun. She doesn't want to learn. She doesn't learn to shoot the gun. So, the gun as a narrative object, what is it going to do for us? Then she uses the gun to defend herself from dangerous jail people. But the gun jams, and ultimately she didn't need it because someone drives a car up to them and saves their life. Then she uses the gun to make sure that the man driving the car doesn't betray them at any point. He takes the gun was never loaded. And he was fine anyway. Like, he wasn't actually really dangerous. He wasn't going to attack them. He ends up being just fine, except for being a flat earther, but that's fine.
Yeah, he's not fine. But not in a way that the movie makes him sound bad for.
So the film puts at least 5 or 6 scenes with emphasis on this gun. The daughter never shoots a gun. The daughter therefore never needed to learn how to shoot a gun. That was just flavor. Like, that was just, I don't know, portraying the mum's desperation to ensure that her daughter learned something, right? But it's one of those things where in a good film, that gun is like definitely going to do something. Like,
It's a literal Chekhov's gun. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's going to be a really strong narrative or plot device. Like, I thought the son, the teenage son, who isn't the one who kind of needs protecting in this film, it's the daughter. I thought, man, wouldn't it be crazy if the son, in a sleep-deprived state, caused injury to himself or a family member with the gun because he was, like, acting brash and irrational. But no, like, that doesn't even happen.
This is the thing, is it sort of feels like every scene was written by a new group of people, and they were just given like a character has a gun, this character's a mother, this guy's a son, go. And they don't know why any of those things have been placed in the scene, right? Like, the next person doesn't know why this character has a gun. They just know they have a gun, so they write their next scene, right? Like, a bit of a spoiler for the movie, but we often spoil the Netflix randomizers. Right near the end of the movie, the son electrocutes himself by, like, taking open a cable because he's massively sleep deprived. And he says, "Dad used to teach me how to gut fish like this." Now, they mention his dad once in the movie, right? We know that his dad is dead and sort of not part of the movie, but they don't mention fishing. They don't mention anything to do with this. It just sort of feels like they're reaching for cliches at every moment. They're reaching for the sort of stereotypes, and they're hitting the beats they need to hit, but there's no soul to it. It's not like anyone actually cared about making this movie. They're just semi-competent filmmakers just hitting the beats they need to hit. The thing with they spend a lot of time, the mother spends a lot of time sort of setting up how scared she is of these military people, how dangerous these military people are going to be. And in particular, that scene where the two guys she sneaks around end up getting killed. They get killed by the military guys, and it's kind of supposed to, there's someone makes a comment about it being the military guys, and it's supposed to set up that they're dangerous. When you actually meet them, they're not dangerous in themselves, right? Everything she's worried about doesn't really happen. The only dangerous thing is the sleep deprivation, which is happening to everyone, regardless of where she went, right? None of
Yeah.
them kill people because they're bad people. They kill people because they're insane, right? And
Yeah.
like that's everything feels just so unconnected. Like it doesn't have any sort of buy-in from the previous scene to get there. And you can see all those scenes being in this movie, just they're not wound together properly.
I also had a big. You heard me complain about this several times, and I know you think it was a little bit more credible. How the characters find out the fix. Two people find out that there's a way to fix the problem.
Yeah.
And so they instantly leap to what, in my mind, was one of the most extreme and out of your way versions of inducing that effect on someone, which I just was a bit like, there are better ways to do that, I think.
I think my last comment on this is, do you think that this movie is anti-science? Because you meet characters who sort of espouse negative opinions about the scientists trying to solve this problem and negative opinions on science in general, and they're not challenged in any way, right? Like it turns out that going to the scientists was the wrong idea, kind of, really, right? It turns out that like you meet a character, like you say, who's a flat earther, and that isn't used to paint him as a madman or a bad person. It's literally just a thing he says and everyone goes like
Yeah, he's painted as like that's just his worldview.
yeah, he just likes burning books, but that's just the thing he does. Anyway, we're moving on. And the movie felt to me like it sort of had this view of, it wasn't explicitly like, in at the end of the day, the only thing you can really trust is Jesus. But it did have a feeling to me that was like, I don't know, that it sort of felt distrustful of the idea that science could solve these problems.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I don't feel like it was overtly anti-science, but definitely like it didn't really feel like it knew what to do about the fact that they had written an anti-science character in there, so they just let him be.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
you know what it felt a little bit to me like was them trying to do the end of 28 Days Later, which is kind of like anti sort of military fascism by having them encounter
right.
those awful soldiers,
Yeah.
except they've done it with scientists, and so it just feels kind of weird. Right.
Yeah. It's yeah, it's definitely not. I just think this is a film that doesn't really take a stance on anything. I think someone I said this scenario to you in the messages as well. It sounds like someone was like, "Ah, man, I kind of want to make a disaster movie." And then someone walks in the room and goes, "Hey guys, oh man, you wouldn't believe this. I barely slept last night and I feel like a zombie." And that film writer went, "Fuck, yeah, no, that's it. Shit, I've got it, I've got it.
What if you never slept?
What if you
Think
didn't
how
fucking
shit you'd feel.
You'd be
It'd
like a
feel
zombie in
awful.
4 days.
You might even
Um,
shoot someone. Oh my god.
you'd fuck someone up if you didn't sleep for 3 days, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you? Wouldn't
Wouldn't
you?
you? Wouldn't you? Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it just does that. And again, I had a problem with they really paint this hysteria to be like lethal in a really short time frame, and then the film lasts twice as long as that time frame.
Yeah.
And it's only on the final night that people do like the proper, oh, I'm so hysterical. These guns look like a good idea to fire.
Yeah.
Um,
I think like what it does is it sets up a sort of ramp that we're gonna go, okay, the more tired you get, the more deranged you'll get. But partway through the film, they want it to be the post-apocalypse of the zombie movie. And in a post-apocalypse of a zombie movie, that's after the ramp's hit its top and it's
right,
leveled out
yeah.
now. And in this movie, when the ramp hits its top, everyone just dies. So you can't really do that.
Yeah, and also just how the mother and her son just lasted an obscenely long time, but had no real good reason to have lasted that long.
Yeah, like that.
Like,
You know, as at any point where they need it, they have clarity. Like,
yeah, exactly. Like she throughout the film, she does these clarity tests, and she like, you know, the film communicates that she's losing her like faculties by her commenting that she's failing these tests like more and more often and not remembering numbers and stuff. But again, it doesn't actually affect her narratively.
Mhm.
Whenever she would need to remember, like whenever she would need clarity, she has it. When she needs to know the 5-digit code to that door, she does remember it. At a time when not remembering it would have had consequences. I
Yeah.
don't want to talk about this. I honestly
All right. Well, we'll
done.
move on.
Done. Nothing good to say.
We'll move on, and the printer's still broken, so there's still no wheel this month, but there is the gin glass of movies. Laura has
Oh,
presented
wow.
me this gin
Drink
glass
deep.
of movies. Drink deep from this nice pink gin of movies. So we're gonna have a rummage. Here we go. I'll get that on the microphone. There we go. Here's the rummaging sound.
Little bit of a rummy
A
bummy.
little bit of a rummy bummy, yes. Oh, a good rummy bummy in there.
Doesn't sound
Okay.
good.
So this is the movie we will be watching. Take a look. But as always, here's what you could have won. Okay, we could have had My Stepdad, the Hippie, Sissy Badam, or Babam, a Turkish comedy. But we're not having that.
Dad, the hippie.
We could have
Okay.
had The American Game, an Egyptian romantic comedy. We could have
The
had
American game, yeah.
Never Back Down, The Beatdown, English language mixed martial arts action thriller. Oh, sounds interesting, but we'll never watch it.
I might have been up for that.
We could have watched The King's Speech, a genuinely good
Oh,
film.
I've never
drama
seen
about
it, so
George IV. I haven't either, but I've heard it's very, very good.
yeah, so yeah.
We could have had Kung Fu Panda, Secrets of the Scroll.
Okay,
Kung
yeah.
Fu Panda.
That's like a special.
We could have had 48 Christmas Wishes, a made-for-TV saccharine elf story.
I'm so glad I'm not watching that.
We could have had Barely Ki Barfi, a Hindi romance comedy.
Imagine if you were like a film from Norfolk. you just couldn't pronounce it. It's just from somewhere.
What we are watching is Amateur, an English language basketball drama. It's got 3 stars on this website.
I don't know how to spell amateur clearly.
You can spell it Amateur. You'll get amateur.
Oh, I did the U and the amateur, but a basketball thing.
Apparently,
2018. There's
yes.
quite a few films called Amateur, but on IMDb I have found the correct one.
Yeah, the 2018 one. So, a young basketball future star struggles with his personal life in the pursuit of his dream. Well, okay, all right. It's I can't see the rating number because it seems to be behind the sign in button.
Well, it won't be
5.9.
It won't be no Space Jam, but I'll give it a go.
All right. Well, okay. Well, all right. We'll give it a go then, shall we? Sounds interesting. The featured review on IMDb is sends a strong message. So we're about to learn. We're about to have our lives changed.
Oh, that message. Gonna be strong.
All right. Well, thank you for listening and watching, everybody. If you're watching live here on twitch.tv/The Bunyip Man, you can get this podcast in audio format at all good podcast places. Just search The Bunyip Review and you'll find us. And it's all edited and lovely and nice and it's good. And Jones does an excellent job. Also, if you're listening to it in the audio version, could you please drop us a review? It really helps get our name out there, get people to know that it's good, assuming you do like it. If you're listening to the audio version, you can watch us live, usually on the first Tuesday of every month. We live stream this on twitch.tv/The Bunyip Man. You can hear us record everything. And you can catch up with updates as to whether it's been delayed or whatever at Twitter, at The Bunyip Man on Twitter. No, at The Bunyip Review on Twitter. That's the one you want. You can also follow me, but I tweet about it less than that account does. It's obsessed, that account. It's just obsessed with the podcast.
Oh
I don't know
God.
why.
One track mind.
Absolute one track mind. Jonas, do you have anything to recommend this month?
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to recommend, on top of everything you just said, I also recommend if you see any of your friends and they're like, oh man, I'm looking for a new podcast to listen to, or they're like, oh, I'm going on a trip that's going to involve lots of me sitting in a seat with a lot of opportunity for auditory entertainment. Obviously, that last bit's probably like implied in the traveling, not overtly said. Anyways, why don't you recommend this podcast to people? I had someone in my Instagram ask for a podcast recommendation, and I felt too anxious to recommend the podcast that I'm on to them. So I recommended someone else's podcast to them, and I felt like a fucking criminal.
Fucking fraud. You
yeah.
should know. This is why we started the Twitter account, so you can recommend it by pretending it's not you.
Yeah, but it was on Instagram and we're banned on Instagram.
Yeah, I forgot.
Remember, our account got instantly banned when it was created before we even posted anything.
Yeah, I forgot that we're banned from Instagram for our heinous Insta crimes.
Fucking Mark Zuckerberg. All right. The normal little recommend section thing that I would like to recommend. If you were interested at all in what I said about the rehearsal, but you think you might not watch it, or you're just kind of fascinated by the idea and just want to understand more about what we're talking about without actually getting into an episode. One of my favorite YouTubers, Super Eye Patch Wolf, who normally does some really good breakdowns of like anime, media, and kind of culture. He's done a entire YouTube video about the creator of the rehearsal, the man Nathan Fielder. The video is called "Who is Nathan Fielder?" It's a fantastic exploration into the barrier between like character and creator, if that makes sense, and then goes a little bit more into what personas people have on and off camera in a way that's obviously really important in an age of mixed media and YouTube and Twitch and things like that. So who is Nathan Fielder? Really recommend that video. I recommend everything on that channel, but that video is particularly relevant.
And I'm going to recommend, I've been listening to a podcast called Beach Too Sandy, Water Too Wet. And the premise is that they, each week, they find reviews on a specific subject. So it could be like cruises or graveyards or something. And they just go around and find the most batshit insane reviews and read them out. And it's really, really funny. Like some people are like angry and they really want to tell you about it, and it's just great.
Oh, that sounds really good.
Yeah, check it out. Beach Too Sandy, Water Too Wet. It's really, really good.
Oh man, I've seen some really fucking funny reviews in my time. So
man, the
yeah.
shit people are willing to say on review sites, they would say nowhere else.
Yeah.
It's so good. All right, that's it for us this month. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back next month. So long.
Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye, Gay Bowser.
Say that in Chris Pratt's voice.
I don't know if I can. Goodbye, Gay Bowser. I love Jesus.
Oh wow! I didn't
Oh,
realize you were
oh,
Peter
wow.
from Family
Wow.
Guy.
Wow, I love Jesus. Wow. Well, there we go. That's the end of the podcast. Thanks everybody for joining us. That was really lovely to have you here. Yeah, Koto. I'm enjoying Laura's chaotic versions of the Netflix randomizer while we get our printer back. To be honest, the reason the printer's not working is not just because it's broken, but because I haven't bothered trying to fix it. Basically, the problem with the printer is that it doesn't print black anymore, despite the fact that it has a near full black ink cartridge. So I don't know if I just have to buy a new black ink. My worry is I buy a new black ink cartridge and then that doesn't fix it, and I have to start and get a whole new printer or shit like that. CBA, but I'll get around to it at some point eventually. This is fun. The hat was fun last month. I say last month, a couple of weeks ago. The glass was fun. Laura. This is Laura getting her creativity out on stream. It's good. I like it. You up to anything this week you want to let people know about, Jonas?
I've got an idea for the 24-hour podcast.
Oh yeah.
So like we have a wheel section in the podcast, but we don't use the wheel. Instead, 8 different things are written on random parts of my body, and then we decide which part of my body I have to reveal the film. And I'm not allowed to know what it says, so someone has to write it on without me looking, and then we put my clothes.
They've announced the day of the coronation of King Charles's coronation. If they give us a bank holiday for that, shall we do the 24-hour podcast on the coronation?
Sure, why the fuck not?
And then we can like crown one of us during the podcast.
We can time our crowning with the king's crowning.
Well, I think he's getting crowned on the Saturday. Yeah, I guess it depends on what we do. Anyway, so you don't need to. You doing any promotion? You doing any streaming this week? Or you?
Not like got a planned stream, because I'm kind of busy and kind of using my free time well. So as always, if you want to know when I'm streaming, make sure you follow the channel, my channel, JTTG, or follow me on Twitter, where I will tweet at least 60 seconds before I go live. That's not true. At least 5 minutes within me going live.
Jonas's
Fucking
new stream. At least 5 minutes within me is the name of your new stream.
I'm gonna stop recording on Reaper, by the way.
Oh yeah, I should stop recording. Cool. All right. Well, follow Jonas if you want to know when he's going to go streaming. And yeah, for the 24-hour podcast, we're going to Crown Town. That's what we're doing. We'll have a Crown Town segment. You can get all of your royal news during the 24-hour podcast. That'd be good. Well, I have a plan, Jonas, for this week.
Yeah, you always have a fucking plan.
Not always. Not nearly
You
always.
You mostly have a fucking plan.
But it's just the normal stuff. Tomorrow we're streaming Civ. We'll be continuing our game from last week. And Thursday we're continuing Sims Medieval. So check in for both of those.
Sims Medieval.
Sims Medieval. They've announced a release date now for Hitman Freelancer. Which will be good. It's like the beginning of next year. So stick around.
Yeah.
We'll be here next year.
I'll be alive.
Oh, also, at the end of this month, we're going to do Spookums Week again because it's October. So Spookums Week this month will be the 25th to the 27th. God, that's closer than I thought it was. So if you have anything you want to see us play that's spooky, because I'm going to have to do a Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So it's going to have to be like a game I could probably play on my own or bring in a guest. Then Wednesday, I have to be a game we can play multiplayer. The past few years, we've been playing Betrayal on House on the Hill on the Wednesday, and everyone is absolutely sick of it. So we need something new. And then Thursday will be something that we can do with Beth and maybe Luke.
With Beth and Luke.
Trick is in the game queue, yes.
With Beth and Luke, I would love to come play the new Monster Prom game with you that comes out the week before. Monster Prom Road Trip.
Ooh, that might be a good idea, yeah.
Yeah.
I doubt Luke will be around, but definitely me and Beth could do it.
Well, I mean, yeah, like the Thirsty Thursday crew is the best kind of night to do it.
Okay, that's cool. Coda's suggesting Mysterium for the board game. We found a tabletop sim version of Mysterium, and it was like I think we actually tried to do Mysterium last year, and it was utterly broken.
I mean, Mysterium has a lot of physical props, so
yeah. So the tabletop sim version had a bunch of ways for dealing with that, but they weren't good.
right, okay.
Yeah. Okay, we'll have a think. But that's a good
Yeah.
shout.
Look at what spooky games have come out this year.
I just Google spooky games.
Spoopums, spoopy spoops.
Spooky dookie. All right, I'm gonna go.
Where?
I'll pick when I've left.
Okay.
All right. Bye, pals. Lovely to see you all. We'll catch you tomorrow.
Good night. Good night, viewers. I love you.
So long.